Welcome back to the channel. My name is Brad, Supercoach Pro. Today we're just doing a quick live, I should say this evening, just a quick live post Carlton and Pies match, just to go through some scores. Internet's a little bit slow at the moment. And then I'll quickly have a look at the Giants and West Coast game, a bit of a flat game to be honest, and just go through my trades that I did this week. I only did the one, and kind of lucky we did do this. So we got rid of TDK, and brought in Lockie Ash this week. We've got 2 injury trades, but we saw DeConning named Rapido, so the writing was on the wall. As a flex spot, I didn't need him there at all. If TDK is your R2, it's worrying and still in a bit of trouble, I reckon. So, yeah, I mean, the games, I'll quickly go through and I'll just send a link to Ghosty, I think, might join us. I'll just double check that is correct. But yeah, the play was probably to go to Callahan, but because I've dislocated my shoulder before, I just wasn't confident that it will stick all season long. Like I don't want to have to worry for the next 2 months of footy that if he cops a huge knock to that shoulder that he dislocated a month and a bit ago, that it won't come out. So I was deciding out of who was it really? Ash, Tom Stewart for $60K cheaper than that. And then took Miller, but that half forward role, with a bit of CBAs is enticing. But at the same time, I thought wet weather footy, I'd rather a guy taking kickouts than maybe a half forward because maybe Took won't convert in the wet, who knows. And I just thought the Giants run is decent enough and Whitfield's going to go nuts. And I don't have Whitfield, so I thought that going Lockie Ash instead would be the play. Josh Kelly's the cheap one I talked about a couple of weeks ago. So, yeah, that's a very interesting pick, actually. I don't know if we could actually go there just because we know what Josh Kelly's like, but he's still a bit of a pod and he's break even. He would have met that. You would have thought, like, there's no way it was beyond that. And it was West Coast, so take it with a grain of salt, of course. But Josh Kelly at, 440K next week, or whatever it's going to be, isn't the worst. Dacos got a few kicks late, which has really pissed me off as a non-Dacos owner, I suppose, because everyone using him as a VCC. And then just to watch him in the last minute, not even go for goal, just sort of stat pat and not go for goal, considering that, they didn't really touch the scoreboard in that last quarter. Like, why are you just holding the ball up, Dacos? Are you just trying to get your disposal numbers? It's actually, I'm not a critic of Dacos in general, but sometimes towards the end of the game, you're definitely just trying to get the numbers up for whatever reason, which could be a little bit annoying. So, as a non-owner anyway, I guess this is a bit of a rant on Dacos, but look, most people got him, so you're laughing if you put the VC and C on him every week, basically. Just about to send the link to Ghosty. We can talk a bit of footy then, and I'll just got to remember how to send to links because I don't really do too many streams other than, Rook, especially live streams. So I'll just invite Ghost to the chat. It'll be almost like, it feels like a pre after dark. But without Rook, he's probably in bed. I don't even know. I could shoot him a DM if I wanted to, but if I see that he's in the chat, I'll invite him too. But just do something for 2 seconds, send this link, and then go through your questions and whatnot, and probably more statements than questions. But yeah, Callahan was probably the play hindsight and made more sense. But again, I'm pretty worried at blokes that have done an injury during season, even though that any player can do an injury from here on out. Says I'm sending the link to him, but for some reason it won't send me a link to him. A bit weird, actually. I'll try something else. I'll try send a different way for the link. And see if it gets to him. If not, I don't know what the hell's going on with StreamYard, but it can be quite frustrating sometimes, this app. Or not app, whatever it is. Okay, I've sent the link to Ghost, so whenever he jumps in, he jumps in. I'll see it come up anyway. I think a few of you would be pretty glad that you got rid of TDK as well. I just seems such a waste of a pick now. Pitto, Pitto might come out next week, but he might not. I don't want to take that risk. Yeah, that's right. I knew you told me about Callahan, but it's more of a buyer beware for me. I didn't really care about what he'd score against West Coast. I sort of thought I just don't want another player that potentially cops a tag. Like I've seen Finn cop a bit of attention at times, like especially earlier in the season after he made himself known in round 0. Last time against West Coast, I captained Finn and he scored a 72, so he gave me a 140 something. So speak of the devil, Ghosty's in the chat, so add him to the stage and see how he's going. How are you, mate?
What's going on, brother? How are
you? Yeah, good, thanks. Just thought I'd jump on because why not on a Friday night when I just chucked the sickie for my last week of this old job. So, yeah, how you going?
Yeah, good, man. I actually chucked a sickie today as well. So we're fucking living our best lives, aren't we?
Literally, you don't know the funniest thing. Like when I got into work, I made a plan for the team and sent my resignation letter from work via ChatGPT. Printed off my medical certificate at work, put it on the admin girl's desk, gave my team the plan, then walked the fuck out of there.
Legend. Best way to do it. I can imagine you doing that for sure, 100%. So that's sick.
I was just so over it. I was like, I just want to watch Friday night footy, and fucking next week I won't be able to do like a 6 p.m. stream, but I'll be able to do midnight ones for the last week of work, and then I can actually do normal shit like the rest of everybody else. Because I even saw Rook wants to do some streams during the weeknights. Do you see that?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, and obviously the more you boys are jumping on, the better it'll be. Everyone loves After Dark. It's awesome for you, man. Just like your general life, being able to actually jump on, not when you're exhausted after a fucking 8 to 10 hour shift or whatever you're doing. So, I'm happy for you, brother. Happy you'll be able to join the rest of us doing the morning shit.
Yeah, well, even your voice notes are like 8 a.m. At least I'll be up this time and I won't be sleeping in. So,
I'm up at 4, bro. So
that's a dirty time.
Yeah.
What did you make of tonight's games? Any note that you took? Because I was watching in and out of a few games, but obviously didn't get a whole percent, 100% committed to it. But what did you find out?
Yeah, I watched pretty much obviously the Carlton-Collingwood game, and then I flicked over, watched the second half of the West Coast and Giants game, and I actually saw a bit of a blast from the past. Ryan Marich took a kick in. Holy fuck!
I know, right? I saw that too, and I was like, "What's going on here?"
Forgotten his new role. I was surprised that I had Tom Green, and he was pretty down, and he ended up scrounging his way up, and he ended up tunning up in the end. So he's just one of those blokes. I think that he can have a shit start, or he starts really well, and he'll always still sort of ton up no matter what. So that was good to see. But just the fact that for me personally, TDK, you have to go, brother. Fucking hell.
So did you trade him in the end? Because I know we were talking about it post any of this sort of shit happening. Did you get rid of him?
Nah, held him for this week. I know he got a 66, which is great. I just thought I'll cop it this week. I sort of like crunch numbers and stuff, and like I said, I'll just probably have to pull a trigger. So there's a sneaky thing I can do, but it would require Gone having to score a 90, so I don't think it's going to work now. So, but I would have been able to trade. If I traded Angus Clark to Archer May, I'd have enough to get TDK to Gone next week, but I don't think that's safe because Gorn's he'll turn up against. I know he's got Riley O'Brien, but he'll probably still turn up.
Yeah, Gorn's an interesting one. I remember you sent me the ruck run home, and my brain was a little bit scrounged, but I didn't realise Gorn's actually got a fair hard matchups on the way out anyway. So I don't think, even if you can't afford him, I'm sure there's guys around the mark. When I was reading those comments, I couldn't get a gauge if you're actually going to get rid of TDK tonight because I was like, Pitto's named. If I'm you, I'm probably getting rid of him, but sometimes you got to wait just one more week to see. Like if Pitto gets dropped next week, you're kind of laughing, but if he doesn't, it's a definite writing on the wall for yourself.
Yeah, well, that's the main thing. I thought I'll leave it this week knowing he'll score crap because I had the choice between Chera or TDK going, and especially I heard Chera was going to play a few other roles as well, and I'm like, I can't anti-pod Bont, like I can't do it anymore, and especially with the North matchup, so I pulled the trigger on that. So I'm very happy. Obviously, Bont got the 133, and more so, I end up VCing Sherry, who just fell short because if he hadn't got the head knock, he probably would have beaten Bont, but if I hadn't had Bont and everyone's gone him as like captain, that's like a double whammy for me. But at least I had him in my team. And yeah, sort of just gave me an extra week to crunch numbers and stuff because obviously the teams and then they were playing last night, so I didn't get a lot of time to work shit out in my head. So decided to do it that way. And look, at this stage, I probably am just gonna just fucking send it, and I'll be bringing Grundy in at this rate. I think he's got the best run home. He's a bit of a pod, so I think that might be the way to go. But like I said, I've got Jackson or Gorn as options as well.
Yeah, I think Grundy's probably the play. I mean, if you're going down to one trade, though, I'd probably go on Jackson if I'm you, because at least in the forward line, there's a bit of flexibility. The issue for you is your TDK is actually in your R2, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the major problem. Like, I know a lot of people are trading out of him, and I would have 100% if it was my flex, but because he's my R2, it was fucking hard. Like, I wish this had happened on a bye week where I had that third trade to use, because then I could, I would have been fine. But because I only had the two, and I had to pull the trigger on Bont last night if I wanted Bont, and I just thought, what's going to be a worse antipod? I was like, if I didn't get Bont in, I probably wouldn't have been able to get him. Whereas now, even though it's going to cost me, I can still get TDK up. So I just decided to do it that way. It's still shit, but yeah.
I wish you grabbed Bont in the end too, because I think he's a tough antipod. But just watching glimpses of the game the other night, anyway. I know it sounds really stupid, and I'm probably going to get a lot of flack. It just doesn't look like he's hungry as the previous years, though. It looks like he's willing his teammates to win the ball first, and then he almost wants to play a little bit more outside than what I'm used to seeing him play.
Agreed.
Do you sort of get that sense as well that maybe he's letting Richards get the inside ball a bit more, and like we saw Richards take a huge hit, and I was surprised he actually got back into the game after that. I thought he'd done his fucking shoulder, but I'm actually surprised how Bonds is almost looking to be more attacking, like a sort of offensive transition, sort of like Dusty was. Like he'd never lay a tackle Dusty, but he'd always be hoping someone else would, so then he could get the free ball and just fucking sprint to goal.
Yeah, no, I do agree, man. Obviously, Richards has stepped up. Libba's always a gun in there, and then you've got even with Treloar out, like Fraser's jumped in there and done really well, and they've just got a better mix. And obviously, Bont missed a chunk at the start of the year too. So they sort of got that chance to get the midfield mix, trained together a bit before he came in. And it's a positive version of like what's happening with Lockie Neal. Like Neal's just going, all right, if I get tagged, fuck it. McCluggage and, Ashcroft and all these boys, you just go do it and I'll take the heat. Like, whereas Bont's sort of doing that, but he's like still trying to score, but he's just not worried about the defensive game. So he's doing it in a positive way where he's scoring, whereas Neil's sort of just like, I'll cop it for you boys. But similar sort of circumstance, I think.
I think it's one thing I've learned this year is that I'm going to build on next year is I think those teams that have like a lot of midfielders that share points will probably divert away from that and like go elsewhere with this. Go for your butters where there's only a handful of guys that are going to steal points from each other in the midfield.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. Like next year, I probably won't start any Brisbane midfielders. I didn't this year anyway. But even Dogs midfielders, it's maybe Richard and Bont, and that's really it. Like how many of these guys can you have in the same line, but also breakout contenders? Like you look at your Bergmans, your Frasers, and maybe some of those guys we consider that could do an Ed Richards this year. I think you're more than likely having to pick one or two to get yourself in a really good position instead of playing it safe every year. So that's something I'm going to look at next year is I wish Guy finished the season really well, like the back 8 games like Richards sort of was, and then but not go too polished at the same time because George Hewitt hurt me this week just because how bad Carlton are. But sometimes we're on too pottish, like, 3 weeks ago choosing Butters over Hewitt. This could really burn me this week, but it's the risk you play when you play Pod City too.
That's it. But overall, like, the Hewitt pick's been solid. It's just he's playing in a shit team. Like, regardless, I know we're going to look at the TDK and Pitnet thing very, like, Supercoach heavy. But if you're looking at it as, like, I'm not a Carlton supporter, but I know a lot of them. And they're not, like, TDK has played forward 2 games now and he's kicked no fucking goals. Like, what does that tell you? That he drops marks, man. Like, he'll take those big screamers, but when he's on the lead, he gets in his hands, he drops it. Like, he took like 2 or 3 marks today, and he's like, what, 8 foot in a forward line? Like, like, like Sam Darcy, I noticed dropped a fair few last night as well, but he also took a fair few. Yeah. Like, you can climb him. But yeah, he's just not a forward, man.
I think I know this is another one, like a bit of a hot take, and you've obviously coached before, but it's probably a little bit easier to almost be a forward being a pinch ruckman, because at least you're still making a contest when you go into ruck and you can grab it out the air and throw it onto your boot if you're in the forward 50.
Yeah.
Whereas the other way around, like, I will get players like Nank, who's actually pretty natural behind the ball. Gawn's a little bit of both. If he could actually do a set shot, he'd actually be an everywhere kind of guy.
Yeah,
but you sort of notice that, don't you? Like, ruckman are really defensively mindful and will, jump in the hole down back, or they're pretty offensive and they'll get you 15 to 20 goals. 20 goals is a bit of a stretch, but there's some that can go forward. I remember watching Ivan Soldo, and he wouldn't get more than 10 goals a season, basically. But when he did go forward, he was so accurate hitting the scoreboard that I loved when he used to sneak forward. He's MIA this year, but I just think there's no forward craftivity with TDK. It's either ruck or bust, really, isn't it?
That's it, man. He's just not built like that. Like, D-Cam's another one that he goes forward and back. Like, he goes behind the ball, takes a grab, but he can go forward and kick some goals too. Like, some of those rucks, like you said, just have it, And then, like, Collingwood, they use McStay as just to jump in the. He's like, here, bro, just jump at the ball. Or even Membry's done it. Like, they don't care. It's just about competing. And I think it's easier for a forward to compete in the ruck than it is for a ruck to try and get forward and, like, stay forward and try and craft. Like, there's so much more into being a forward. Obviously, being a ruckman, it takes skill, but you can compete in a ruck contest if you just give it. Like, McStay beat TDK a couple times in the ruck, I saw. And that shouldn't even happen. So, yeah. But like you said before with the mids as well, and not picking ones from, like, the same team that have, like, a bunch of mids, like, the crappier sort of teams or the bottom teams at the moment, like, they don't really have a gun mid. Like, who's West Coast? Harley Reid, and he's young. Like, Richmond has Taranto, but who's that next crop coming through? Melbourne, who's the next one coming through for Melbourne? So once, like, they sort of establish, they're the ones that you can sort of pick. But so I agree with you on that. Those sort of, like, once those new ones come through, it won't be as much sharing points.
Yeah, you still there? It just dropped out a little bit.
Oh, I did it. Fuck. Yeah, I'm there. Can you hear me?
Nah. Yeah, I can hear you now. It only went out a tiny bit. Yeah, but I definitely got what you're saying. Like next generation, like, you'd sort of see the players in your side that is going to come through. Like, for Richmond, it's got to be McAuliffe, but we've got too many one-paced midfielders anyway. Like, I know Taj Houghton will probably get a game in the next week or two, and he's one that they like and says sort of like a Shane Edwards mould and a little bit Bolton-esque, where he's very agile, which we don't have too many of those guys in Richmond midfield, but more like the midfielders we're talking about in those teams are your clear centers that already have broken out, like your Butters, who's already been late, and then who else have they got, really? Bergman.
How long?
Yeah. I could have sworn I heard he signed. I don't even know now, but
it's a couple of years, and then I don't know if it takes in the free agency or whatever it is. They're doing, like, the 2-year deals and stuff, I think. I could be wrong. I did hear he signed, but I just didn't think it was so long.
Yeah, I thought it was going crazy for a second. And the other thing I noticed, sorry, someone's cracked the shits. The other thing I noticed too with, what's my train of thought? there's some of these midfielders that actually, age regressing and getting into their 30s, like Zach Merritt and Lockie Neals. That like Merritt's playing forward, he's playing back. So I'm actually going to stay away from those guys turning 30 that want to give it to the next generation of midfielders, because that's hindering their scores. Like you talked about Neal just before, like he'll sacrifice his own game basically for the benefit of his whole team to get the ball.
Yeah.
And so will Merritt. So I think next year it's the guys between, like your Callahans, like, between 22 and 25 per se, that got the role, that even if they do play forward, they're a good, kick for goal. Like a Butters, like we saw his early career, he played forward anyway. So at least, if you do get Butters shaken in a tag, like Dacos as well. Dacos plays well forward. Sure, he's not a contested mark forward, but he works so hard that he's always going to have a few set shots of goal because of his work rate and how much they look for him as well.
Yeah, no, that's it. I agree completely. And yeah, Callahan, fuck. It's funny how like you see a bunch of these players that just kill it when you don't own them. When you do own them, they're bags of shit. Like I remember I owned him the last time he played West Coast, and I was like, oh, he's gonna kill it. And he got like a 60 or a 70 or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah, 72. I captained. I captained him for the game because I thought he was gonna go nuts.
Jesus Christ. You're still ranked high when you did that, so well done.
Yeah. And I was going to hold Finney Boy if he didn't dislocate his shoulder. So it's kind of a shit one. It's like I couldn't hold that pick in my position because at the time I was in the top 100. So to hold a bloke that's dislocated a shoulder, and because I've done it my own, by myself 3 times, and know that I missed minimal, I missed 4 games. And I did the right rehab as well. It's not like I was just, not doing any recovery. I was seeing a physio a couple of times a week and whatever, and going to the, what do you fucking call it? Like those physio pools and all that shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then you see him dominate, and, hindsight tells you, and not even hindsight, but the pick said that it was there this week. But in my own head, I couldn't carry a player just dislocated a shoulder for 8 more weeks, because I can't remember if it was Sicily that did a shoulder last year, and then they brought him back and then he hurt it again and it sort of fucked him. So I didn't want to go down that route again of having to worry for 2 months every time he goes into a contest.
Yeah. No, and that's fair. Like, we make these calls on logic and what we think is going to happen. And then sometimes we're right and sometimes we're wrong. And, he's been pretty good since he got back. And even after, like you said, that shit little period he had, he was going good until he hurt his shoulder. And even the week he did it was near the end of the game or whatever. He still had a ton already anyway. So, but yeah, he's like obviously that next breakout player. When I traded him out, I ended up getting marriage for him, so I didn't complain too much because he held me off pretty well until he obviously got his role switched. So, but yeah, he's definitely one to watch. Yeah, even I was sitting there watching him going, fuck, like you're everywhere, man. Like that, and they're so much better when he's in the side. Like they just move the ball better.
And I already reckon he's better than Tom Green by far.
Yeah, Tom Green's. I think they're probably the perfect combo in terms of what they both bring. Like Callahan can get the ball, and he'll get it out into space and chase it himself and just fucking go. Whereas Green's like 99% contested, like Matty Rao, like those sort of blokes that just need that physical. Like it was him and Harley Reid tonight, and that was just fun to watch. Like they were just getting into each other and wanting to bash each other and shit. So
yeah,
love that kind of stuff, But yeah, you're right. Callahan's the flashier Rolls Royce sort of type. Tom Green does a lot, but we saw what it was like without Callahan in the side, and Tom Green didn't help him like win games like Callahan does.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I've been pretty stuck with the comments, to be honest, because I just wanted to talk to you for a bit. I'll get through some of these and we'll
go for it.
Corey's gone. He went Wits to Green, had 41 in the last quarter. If he was better. Briggs, nice game. Briggs is interesting. He's never going to be an R1 or R2 for me, maybe in a draft format, but nothing Supercoach classic for you either.
Yeah, nah, same. Agreed.
Then Corey's following up with my VC would have been better. So a lot of people would have tried the actual VC and Tom Green. I actually forgot about that, but What are your thoughts on Colby? I think he's legit because the role's legit. Would you say the same, or do you got a different take?
Yeah, no, the role makes it. If he didn't have that role, we see what he does when he plays wing and shit, and it's not at a level. But he's even sneaking forward and kicking goals. So he's he's trying to get like in the chain. Like he starts it, but he keeps going, and that's when it looks good. And he sneaks forward, and yeah, obviously, people after the first week were a bit worried about him, and this is what happens when he's a bit cleaner with the ball and playing under a roof at Marvel.
He reminds me of a Jaden Short. Like, there wasn't too much prime Jaden Short, to be honest, but like when Jaden Short did have his one really solid year, he'd sneak up forward and he'd take those kicks, sort of like Houston as well. Like, probably didn't play her again, but I think more Short. Like, he has that role of run and carry, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. Then if someone's out 60 metres, they'll want the drive-by handball to then kick to him. And the way McKercher plays reminds me very much of Jaden Short, who's done fuck all this season because of injury, but he reminds me of him a lot in terms of like for like, probably better scoring than Short already, though, at his age already.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I think I had Short that year that he did really well, and I had Short this year, but this year didn't go so well. Probably on the never again list, but yeah, you're right. He is that same sort of type of player. I'm just worried that I still see like North try to give the ball to Caleb Daniel every time they're near him, and I'm scared that that's going to stop soon because he's starting to. His first quarter was it was dog shit last night. He was turning it over left and right.
Well, in a fortnight's time, I'll be able to see these games and see what you guys are talking about. So I've got one more week of this fucking afternoon shift, and then I'll actually be able to see day games from a bit late, from like round 19 onwards. But at least I can watch finals in peace and not have to worry about working.
Yeah, no, you've timed it well.
Yeah, I've been needing. I haven't done like a 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. in almost 2 years, but. Wizard King's got here. Where was this from Briggs when he gave me a full 27 in a game? Yeah, Briggs is shit. Like Briggs is a downhill skier from what I see, but he barely even skis anyway. What are your take on Ash? See, I didn't expect Ash to go 150 because I knew he wouldn't have much of the ball back there. Is that your take too? Would have you expected just the 110 because of the ball not being down his end?
I think a lot of people need to like not expect 150s in general. Like they're not that common. Everyone's saying Baz and Holmes are going to go 150. Can they? Yes. Are they guaranteed to? No. I watched like everyone was saying Tom Green could go 150 tonight. He just got 100. Like even though honestly, other than your rucks are probably your best chance to go these like 150s. Like when you got like, if it's a Sherry or a Gawn versus Flynn, like that's when you got a big chance because it's just constant contests and, Gawn went like nearly 200 on him. But I don't think you can expect someone that takes kick-ins or a midfielder to get a 150 like locked in guaranteed. I think a 115 to a 130 is roughly the range. If it's a good matchup and they're in decent form, that's what you should expect. Anything more is a bonus.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Especially with these VC and Cs, like you hear some people go, "Oh, should I risk the 120 something plus?" And you're like, you can do that, but there's a chance where your guy gets subbed out, especially back into the season because they want to rest and manage players. Like if you said to me that, I'm not taking Bond's VC of 133, and you're confident Baz was your C, I'd be worried that Geelong are up at halftime by 70 points and they put Baz on ice at 3/4 time because they're like, he's a little bit sore. We don't need to risk him. We've already got the points in the bag and it's at GMHBA, etc. I'd be worried if I was taking the risky option, especially back in the season when, especially the sides that are going to make finals, they're the teams you don't want to risk these players in case they do. Like we saw Rory Laird twice this season being managed and subbed off at one game as well. So, for me, the risk is not worth it now. I think you risk VCs and Cs you're in the buys because you have a bit more flexibility in best 18 format, but certainly now I would never be risking anything over a 120.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And like I had, when Sherry went down, I think he was on like a 119, and I was actually messaging Rook and I said, shit, it's like that awkward score where do I take it or not? And luckily he got scaled up while he was off. So once he hit the 125, I was like, oh no, I'm taking it. Like I'm not stuffing around with it. I knew most people would have either him or Bont. So it's what, 7 points. It's not that big of a gap. And I'm not going to go, oh shit, Bont's up by 7 points. So I better put the captain on Baz and hope he gets it. Like you take it. It's a safe option. We've seen too many times. Like even last week, Dawson against your boys, everyone was saying the same thing. He's going to go 150. He's going to go 150. And then we actually asked what we thought he'd get, and I said around 120, and he ended up getting 110, 112. So it's good to have the good matchups. It probably means you're getting a ton. Like that's a good thing. I think a lot of people just expect that their primos are just getting tons every week, and this season I think we've learned that that's not the fucking case.
Yeah, I think I was one of those guys that probably thought Dawson would go 150 against the Tigs, and it's always the player that you don't expect half the time that goes nuts that you wouldn't have expected. Like I actually think the highest scoring player tomorrow, I don't know what day we are. I think it is tomorrow, Geelong v Richmond, isn't it?
Yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah, I reckon the highest scoring player is actually going to be Tom Stewart for what it's worth. I reckon he's the one that goes ballistic because we'll kick him there, the ball to him without Tom Lynch, and we can't kick straight anyway, even with him or without him. So I think he's the guy that I'd be putting in the sneaky BC on if I was a Stewart owner, to be honest.
And look at Sam Darcy. Everyone was like, how many goals is he going to kick? And he ended up kicking 4, but he was on like 30 at 3/4 time. Like his last quarter saved him. So like I said, it's matchups, and you look at him and you go based on logic, but just don't rely on, oh, he needs to get a 150 or one, like that's what he's going to get. Like it's just, expect a ton to that like 120 mark, and anything above that is just bonus. Like you've done well.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree. And everyone in the chat that's here, there's 54 almost at midnight. Give us a like for the stream. It's like a pre-drink after dark sort of thing, if anything.
Just had to get my rage out from fucking watching TDK try to play forward. I just can't. I needed to do something.
I think there's a few of us. Like I've got Chera that I looped and I had, I'll go through the side shortly, and then I put not TDK, McCarthy on field anyway. I didn't lose many points doing the loop stuff, but sometimes having too many options actually screws your side over.
Yeah.
People missing Finn Callahan in chat. I'm one of them as well. That's Hawksy missing him. Can I get a refund on my Callahan Bolton trade? Yeah, shit, that would have been annoying too. I got rid of TDK for Ash, and you kept TDK, but he's gone for you next week. So that's what I'm just reporting James about. Max Holmes, 130 higher or lower. I reckon he goes 145.
I think that's his max. I think like you could do the same thing you just said about Baz. They might just go, look, we're up, fucking take it easy, Maxi, have a rest. But yeah. Oh, it wouldn't surprise me. I'd be surprised if he scored lower than a 120. I'd be surprised. I think he's 125 easy. Like lock that in.
So would I, especially at home and whatnot. Corey says McCarthy, huge last quarter, got to 80. She had a bit of a down game, annoying. I felt that definitely in my side, especially as a pod. It's the only time you really feel it is when it's a week where everyone else's goes nuts and your pods do the opposite.
Yeah.
Rodini's there, got off TDK. Glad he did. Hawks, he projected 2,498. That's nuts, actually. What are you projected for? Not that I, take too much into account, not that we ever do, but what's your projected?
Just over 2.4 or something like that. Nothing crazy.
Yeah, I'm having a look at mine now. Mine's now 2.3. I did some looping here because that Chera news, I thought maybe he might play back and loop to McCarthy with 9 points, but now I can run Merritt against Gold Coast or take the Chera. I'll probably just run the Merritt and hope that Merritt goes 130 or something like that. And I played the same game with Sheasel down here, 94. So I was going to put McCarthy down back if Sheasel had went 60. So I've got a lot of flexibility. And then Carol Daniel, for some reason, looped with Day Wicks just for no reason, to be honest.
Well, yeah. Well, that his score wouldn't count yet, would it? Or does it because Day Wicks isn't named? Does it already added it to your projected? Or I don't know how it fucking works, man.
I don't know how it works either. I haven't really accounted for it, but I grabbed another defender in flex. I had TDK there, but I bought in Ash. So the reason why I actually put Daniel Loop was in case he scored really badly and needed to bring in Jack McRae and put him where Day Wicks is or something like that.
Yeah. No, that makes
but
sense.
it was more of a worst case scenario. He gets injured or some shit like that. That's all.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But yeah, you got flexibility across your whole side, man. That's really good. That's going to come in handy because it will save you at one stage.
I hope so. I'm kind of looking for carnage, but not really for everyone else. Maybe just for the teams around me.
Yeah.
Projected 2474. I think it's going to be high projections. What do you do for work, Brad? I just quit me job doing an afternoon supervisor role. I won't say where until I've actually finally left in case they hear this. Hawkson says VC Bont was nice in terms of this round. I agree, especially because Dacos went under that anyway by a few points. Yep. Well, most good teams are projected 2-5. Yeah, my rank's probably cooked if this is the case, but we all know that it only takes a few Saturday, Sunday games for everyone's projects to come down a couple 100 points anyway. So I don't really get worried on a Friday night, not even until maybe the last game. That's when you can really see you're projected.
Some are ridiculous though. Like Grundy's that projected a 150 or 140 or something. I'd be shocked if he gets that against two rucks. Like I highly doubt he's going to do that to Jackson and Darcy.
Yeah, and then your flex knocks off your shit score. So my flex essentially knocks off Bailey Dale's score anyway. So, Warner down here in ranking at 82 projected. Rosie's only projected an 89. So it's really hard to tell. Even Kylewell and Merritt are projected higher than Rosie, which makes no sense to me. And then Mills is projected as 66. So how can you base anything off projected when it even reckons Zorko's based 80, Sinclair 97? Like they're well unders. So for 2-3, I don't really give a shit what the projected of mine says because all these are unders, barring maybe one or two that I can see here. Even Bailey Smith, I reckon he's more than 117.
Look at Petrarca though as well, 130 against Adelaide. That's pretty tough.
See, that's the opposite. That's where you go, no way. But there's other players you go and hang on. Zorko's surely not going to get 80. Yeah. I mean, he might. And then Brayshaw, he's predicted to go 95?
Yeah.
So I don't know how people can actually really, and this is not a dig at anyone in chat because I actually love these people in the chat here, but this is why I don't really care what projected says, just for that perfect example.
It'll change for sure, but I'm actually surprised that because I've got Bailey Dale as well. If we're looking on the bright side, TDK still outscored him.
Yeah, that's definitely looking at the bright side in a different way.
Dale actually kicked 2 goals and TDK kicked none.
Which is crazy. Surely Bevo doesn't want that stick either. You wouldn't think. I think that's obviously to shake the tag, wasn't it?
I was actually when he was kicking the goals, I know most Dale owners would have been cheering. I was like, no, don't kick goals in that role, you idiot. Like, you're going to get stuck there.
Oh, I just don't think long term you'd do that because they look so much better with, Dale down back, don't they? And you've coached as well. You'd never actually do it.
No, he's getting tagged by Costantian. I actually really like him. He's not like the most talented. He's not a ball winner or anything like that, Costanti, but he looks like he gives a shit. Like he's happy to be out there and he's happy to do the hard stuff. You know what I mean? Like he loves a tackle. He loves getting stuck in the bloke. So like he obviously did a good job if he got Dale moved out of the back line.
Yeah, 100%. Which is kind of weird that players, let the tag get to him in a way as well. Aqua doesn't believe this 2-6 thing. Scorches, I have to start working from the 14th, so I'll have to go prioritize my streams. Does that mean he wasn't working before, so now he's got to pick the streams he likes with work coming into consideration? I think that's what he means.
Maybe he's taken over your old job by the sounds.
Yeah, I don't think my old job's been advertised yet. I haven't even got a call from my boss as it speaks, and I sent him an email at work with the resignation letter at my work email. I didn't even use my personal email for that.
Oh, shit. That'll be on Monday, maybe.
Yeah, and then I left with the doctor's certificate. I'll tell you what, the balls are feeling pretty heavy. Acker says they needed a Libert. What is this? They needed a Libert and Callahan at Bearman. Do you know what he's talking about?
Projectors, the 2-6 projectors.
Oh, right. Okay.
Have like those boys in there for sure.
That makes more sense because I'm like, what's going on? And then Acker says waiting to see the CBA mix with Kelly. Kelly used to sort of be injury prone, but for the price for an M90 wouldn't be the worst shout. Thoughts on that one?
Yeah, no, he's if he's getting the CBAs, he's always been solid. Obviously, his durability is not great. He's usually injured, but
yeah,
I've had him before, and I've had him in a year where he was like the prime mover in the mid, and he killed it. And I've had him before where he's played wing and done jack shit. So, but you know, what's surprising is if I was going to go with Gone next week, one of the players, I don't know now, he might have actually scored too much this week and gone out of my price range, but O'Halloran was one of the backup bench covers I was going to have. And he just went at 120.
I just remembered you did have that in one of your options. And I thought you'd lost your marbles, but then after tonight scoring and watching him play, I thought, yeah, okay, maybe he's on something here with this pick.
I just wanted blokes that played. And it was about the 300 and something K mark that I'd have available. And I just looked at the ones that all of them average about 60, 65, but at least they all play. Like your Bedford, you know, O'Halloran, Erasmus and all these blokes are around the 300K mark. That at least they're playing every week. And it was just be for bench cover, and I'd be able to bring Gone in. But it's either that or go super cheap, get like an Arch and May even after his price rise. As long as he's got the job security, and then I can go Grundy instead. So just weighing stuff up like that.
Yeah, it's just you get a better idea with who you're able to afford anyway. Once lockout's done, it'll give you probably hopefully more clear sense than what you had this week. But a Friday night and Thursday night footy's been a bit shit from what I'm hearing anyway. Because Ackles got here, the Carlton Pies games was absolute shit show after half time.
Mm-hmm.
Just inside 50 after inside 50, also to Elliott. Yeah. Bad holds. And then Gone v Grundy. I think I'm on the Grundy train for this. It sounds like you are.
Yeah.
Gorn's last 5 is like 2 averages on DFS. Yeah, so basically people were saying you jumped off selling him out at his highest price about a month ago or whatever it was, and then jump back on him at those around 19, 20. But no one's going to have trades to do that.
Yeah, the only problem is I can't wait for Gone because otherwise that means I'm playing TDK, so I can't wait. It's next week. I'm going to pick the best option. It's either Gone or honestly, if Sherry doesn't play, which I think he will play, but if he doesn't play, I'll probably just go Gone because who the fuck are they going to ruck with North Melbourne?
Yeah, no, I agree. And Basil Holmes, I'm thinking Holmes is less likely to get managed, so I'm probably picking Holmes for these two. You're the same.
Agreed.
Watkins says, no stress, mate. Pitto will get dropped. Do you reckon he will get dropped? Because we thought this and then he came back, 2 weeks later, and now this shit's happened again. TDK versus Fort next week at Marvel.
I spoke to you about it. I spoke to Rook about it. I spoke to other people and Carlton fans about it that I know, and not one person thought that Pitnet would play this week.
Yeah.
They're slow, so they bring in a ruckman. They say they want speed and ball movement, which is why they brought Jordan Boyd in last week. They've dropped him a week later to bring Carroll straight back in. I don't understand at all what they're doing. They dropped Chincotta when you know you got no one to match up on day cost. Like, it wasn't like, they obviously played well in the first quarter. And I literally remember I looked at the quarter time score and I was like, this is going to die. Like, they got no hope of lasting long. And then they shut the bed after that. So I'm just assuming that they're going to just, until either Mackay or Hudson O'Keefe, I think it was, who did his hammies 1 to 2 weeks away, until one of them is right to come back in, I think Pitnet's staying on.
Yeah, I think you're probably right as well with that. Like, Pitto stays until, Mackay or old mate fixes his hammy. I don't reckon they'll actually rush him back at all. I think he'll play VFL and not come back at all, to be fair. But maybe they give Young a shot because they dropped Young for that, didn't they?
He was one of the few goal kickers they had last year.
What? Hang on. So because I missed some of this shit. They kept Young and fucking Pito.
No, they dropped Lewis Young. They played Flynn Young, who's a young kid.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. That's what I thought. What the hell? I thought, never mind.
No, they brought Lewis Young in last week, and I think he kicked their first goal. He didn't even really back up ruck even. They were using Cripps pretty much to do that. So they're just all over the joint, man. Like, I remember just sitting there watching it going like, what is the go here? Like last week they were against Port, who had 2 rucks. So that would make more sense to have Pitnet there. Why would you have Pitnet take on Cameron and then TDK to come in and pinch hit 5 minutes a quarter in the ruck? Like, it just I don't see Voss. Like, I don't think he'll get sacked this year, but he's not going to keep his job. There's no fucking way. It's just ridiculous moves that make no sense. And then he contradicts himself the week after and does something different. Like,
That's the probably thing that would piss me off the most, actually, if I was a Blues fan, is hearing one thing and then seeing him make the changes he said he wouldn't make. That would probably annoy me more than anything. Or it's like he's second-guessing his own self, and then I don't know if he's listening to someone else in the box and they're telling him to do this instead. Because, like, it wasn't that long ago people thought Voss was king, like, the way they were playing at some stage. I can't remember when it was now, but it's interesting. Like, I don't want them to do well round one, and then I don't really care what happens from there on. But as all honesty, like, just supporting the footy, though, you kind of actually want to see, I know a lot of people won't agree with me with this, but you want to see Carlton, Collingwood, Essendon, Hawthorn, Richmond all sort of do well. Like, not that I'm anti-state. Like, I hate, the the interstate sides. But the game is a lot better when all those sort of MCG teams are at least in the mix, or at least doing well, because the crowds do come through the gate and it's a little bit more engaging. Whereas North Melbourne and St Kilda's, when they're successful, and there's nothing wrong with those two sides at all, but there's not a lot of hype around them. There's no, atmosphere-driven games. Whereas when you see those big dogs all up the same end, there's a really good rivalry. Even with, like, I hate how consistent the Cats are, but you look at them and you look at Sydney and you think, how do these two teams in particular in the last 10, 15 years stay successful? And it's obviously the way they've been recruiting and the way they, the Cats got the Geelong Falcons. Sydney, some of these players get zoned as well, which is interesting on how the zoning works or whatever. And it's like these teams that stay at the top, in particular Cats in Sydney, and, they only duck out of the finals for a season or two. You wonder why a lot of teams can't do this same shit. Like, I remember watching the Tiger era. It was only from, 5 years, not even. Probably 4 years it was, from like 17 to, 20, and then we fucking completely fell off, basically. But once retirement hit, it just made me go, oh, wow, I wish I had went to more games when we were at the top. But seeing as other teams like the Cats and Sydney just keep making finals, or, Sydney's a different story this year, obviously, but the consistency with some of these teams, you go, how come not all teams can mimic the way these big dogs have done it for a decade or so? And then you look at sides like Carlton, where you're like, all right, you just keep bringing in shit coaches for shit coaches for shit coaches, and you're going, something's got to change, whether it's the recruitment department or it's the coaches. Like, you look at when Dimmer bring some coaching staff through, they all fucked off to actual real sides coaching now. Like Kingsley, like, he's at the Giants, and same with Clarko. Look at his, people that came from him. Like, you just think these guys, it wasn't just a premiership coach; it was all the staff they had around him. So you look at fucking Voss, and who does he got in the box that you go, oh my god, he could be a senior coach elsewhere?
Yeah, no, the only one I've heard is Ash Hansen. I think is the only sort of one I've heard get spoken about a bit in Voss's coach's box as a possibility to coach somewhere else. But that's the debate I'm hearing lately is it, do you sack Voss or do you give him another year, which he's contracted to anyway, I think, and do you fuck off all the assistants and everything around him, bring in a bunch of new voices, and then you can actually see in that year, is it Voss or was it the assistant coaches or is it the list or is it, they've got a lot of talent in their list. Coming from a fucking Essendon supporter, I'd rather have Carlton's list than ours. Like, they haven't utilised. They've got Coleman medalists, Brownlow medalists, awesome rucks, a full back that's probably top 2 in the comp, and it's just what's left around them that's just not pulling the weight. So, yeah.
I think it's actually also the line coaches. Like, I remember watching Richmond, and we had Ben Rutten, we had Kingsley, then we had, oh my God, Mark Williams was before that a little bit as well. Like, we had elite fucking coaching staff. Then Mick Walter had been there for almost a decade now. He's at West Coast, of course, but like even for that, like the amount of assistants that come through and then become senior coaches elsewhere, I think that's what Carlton lack, and some of these other clubs that haven't been playing so well the last 5 years. You kind of look at Clarko, and they spent all this money on Clarko, and sure, they've got a few good ones around him, but sometimes they put all their eggs in one basket, whether it be players. Like we saw Gold Coast franchise when they first came out. They put all their eggs in one fucking basket, being Gary Ablett. And that was to build the team, build the membership sales, etc. But you look at the Giants and they did it a different way, and look where they are compared to Gold Coast over the last 10 years. Completely different.
Callum Ward and shit, yeah.
Yeah, they went for hard edge players, have been around the system, role players that good leadership roles, etc. But they built a club for foundation. So what I have admirability for a club like the Giants, sure they got a shit ton of draft picks in that given era. And like a lot of those players have been filtered through now, or they're at least almost retirement age anyway. And a lot of them had been signed back to Victoria, etc. But you see, they've always been very competitive side, whereas Gold Coast haven't even got near it. So, that's the perfect example of a club that did really fucking shit, and the others that actually went, nah, this is what we'll attack instead. Let's actually put all our eggs in different baskets instead of just one particular thing. So to see the footy every year, it looks like it's a little bit more evened out because you're seeing sides upset sides that you wouldn't normally fucking guess and would have thought no way. But then the expectations for clubs to ask for handouts become ridiculous because how even it is anyway. Like we saw North fucking just draw against the Lions, at the start of the season. And then, come into the season, you'll hear some club trying to get some picks out of their ass, but you kind of wonder, some of these clubs like a Carlton, etc. back in the day just tank the shit out of it and, pretend to be shit to get all these bonuses. And, when are they going to come good? Because at some point the supporters are going to crack the shits. And there's a few supporter bases that we don't even have to name that have absolutely lost the plot going, what the fuck's happening with this club? Like, do I just change membership when Tassie comes in? Because there would be clubs going, shit, we need to do something before our members turn. But also your members need to back your side regardless.
I think, 100%. And I think I'd love to know what every club, like their unique view on the draft picks are, because I feel like there's clubs that look at draft picks and go, all right, we need to get the best possible talent we can, like you look for your Nate Caddies, like that's going to be a key forward like gun. Then, you've obviously got like your mids and stuff, like they're pretty easier to find, or like, you can get a midfielder that's like pick 35 that ends up being your best midfielder just because so there's clubs I reckon that value that and go, all right, we're going to find something or develop something out of that. And then I think there's other clubs that are just like, all right, we need these picks so we can trade them for guns that are already out there playing now. Like it's almost just like cash for them going, all right, we've got these picks now. We don't really want to bother drafting. Like they obviously draft, but they're like, what can we get that's established in other AFL clubs now for these picks? Like Richmond obviously loaded up on picks last year, sort of doing the Sammy Mitchell way of what he's done at Hawthorn, which is just sort of gut the old players, play a bunch of kids and have them all grow up together, which I think is a good way of doing it. But you got your teams like, your Geelongs and Sydney's and stuff, who Sydney obviously have the academy, which a lot. But Geelong can be like, all right, well, they draft like a few kids and they keep some, but then they're happy to trade their draft picks and they get guns like, Jeremy Cameron and they get, Baz Smith. Like last year, but the currency that Baz Smith had wasn't that high, really. Like, yeah, you're like, oh, yeah, he's a decent player. You know, he's got some potential. But now look at him. We're talking about him possibly winning a Brownlow. Like, do you get what I mean? Like, there's certain clubs like Geelong, especially, that get the best out of the blokes that like other clubs don't really want. Like Cameron was a gun at Giants, don't get me wrong, but they're getting the best out of Baz. They're one of those clubs that get the best out of the players they get.
Yeah, I mean, the perfect example for that is Tyson Stengel. He was on the Richmond list, then he went to Adelaide, and then he went to Geelong and won a flag with them. But, like, I think you're right. Like, there's clubs that are, like, we've seen that are good through working with injuries. Like, Brisbane's been known for that kind of thing, like they did with McCarthy and all these other sort of players. And other teams are good for turning those really players that, toe the line in terms of outside of football world, and good at keeping those players in line, or at least under wraps so we don't hear about it, which we won't get into or else the channel will get fucking banned. But yeah, it's amazing. Like, even like Baz, I'll turn it back to Supercoach a little bit because this was more of a bit of a footy talk, which we don't normally do. But I think oversight for Baz this year was exactly as the same as the draft currency. It's like, oh my God, we're not selling Baz. He's 380K or whatever he was to start with. He's going to be a shit pick. He's a mid-price. And it's kind of like, I think that, people undersold him anyway, because you look at the prime age for these players and clubs are happy to pick with a second round or whatever they're happy with at the time, because they're almost like, yeah, we'll move him on because whatever. But they actually sort of don't really think about, all right, he's in his prime. He's actually a good player. Yeah, his disposal efficiency shit. But in a side that needs him like Geelong did, his value probably goes up more. So he probably could have asked for a little bit more. And then we've seen that he could win a Brownlow. If you're the Dogs, you're kicking yourself. And it also goes back into the coaching of, well, fuck, Bevo, why did you go with all these guys that are, I don't know, relevant for Supercoach? Like, we look at McRae dominating as a forward because you're playing him in the right midfield at St Kilda. Not that Ross Lyon's coach anyway, but you kind of wonder with all these kind of players that they do get rid of, they're getting rid of the wrong player for the wrong reason. And sometimes I actually think it comes down to actually personal clashes. Sometimes I just read into it, I'm like, there's no way it's a performance-based thing, or that they're being pushed out of a midfield role. Maybe it's actually been something that's been a personal ongoing issue between the coach and the player, because shit doesn't add up in football, and I don't think a lot of stuff will ever get told until, retirement, or they write a book about it. But in the meantime, we're kind of like, oh, what the fuck's going on? Then when they retire, we'll be like, oh, that makes more sense, Supercoach wise, whatever.
That's the year he fucked me. I didn't have him. That year that TDK played Carlton and went to St Kilda, and he was stuck forward the last 6 rounds of the fucking year because of Voss.
And here's the theory. Maybe he's already signed. So my theory for this, actually coming back to this, is, and I said this to you, I don't know, was it this week or last week? Maybe he has already signed. So they're seeing what Pitto afterlife looks like now and how they use Pitto going forward. Is he still worth playing? Because maybe he has signed, because TDK looks disinterested in the last couple of weeks as well. So I'm not saying that he's signed, or I know sources saying he has or anything, because I've never been that guy to go out on a limb and produce that kind of content. But I feel like end of season there might be something where we're like, oh shit, that's why that player didn't perform, because they'd already checked out, because they've already had the offer, they already signed the ink deal, and nothing was released for X, Y, and Z reason. Because if you're to release that now, then you're probably not even playing TDK for the rest of the year, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And yeah, you've said it for a while, and if that's the case, there must have been, I would say you're probably right, and there's probably been at least some kind of indication, because if they thought they were a chance at keeping him, they wouldn't be playing him forward. Like, that makes zero sense to me. If they know to do it, like, they would not. That's just, if he's like 50-50, you're pushing him out the door if that's the case, because he doesn't want to play forward.
Yeah, that's right. Like, it kind of, we can say that it's injuries, but there's a world where it might not actually be injuries. And I'm not saying you should sell TDK because I think he signed a fucking contract. But at the same time, there's reasons for so much more. And then, we don't find out till a year later, like, fuck, maybe we should have trusted our gut. Like, here's a good one. Like, I'll never touch Clayton Oliver again in Supercoach, because I think he's done. I think whatever has happened in the past outside of his football life, I think is mentally or physically just made him go backwards. And he's not the Clayton Oliver we saw when he first hopped on the scene for a guy that was close to averaging like a 120 or whatever. I'll never pick a player that I think is mentally checked out and just doing it for a good paycheck and whatever. And because there's a certain age in football, and you know this through coaching as well, that your prime starts to dip anyway. So you kind of can't expect a player, let's say, they've gotten through all the injuries and they've out of their stupid state of mind, but now you want them to turn prime at 28, 29 years old. It's unlikely that they're going to do that anyway, because just due to body progression and the recovery process, etc. And unless you're bloody Scott Pennery, but it's a 1% thing. Would you agree with that sort of thing? Like once a player's sort of done and dusted what they've gone through mentally, physically, whatever it may be, there's a point where you're like, all right, now there's got to be a new generation of Supercoach players that we pick instead of picking the old head that we're just used to having a safe pick, because they're all going to regress. And I think Gone next year as a player, I don't start.
Yeah, you just said it 100%. Like you said, I've been in that position where I've coached, and the mental aspect is more important than the physical. The things you can do when you're out there, when the want and the hunger is there to do it, your physical ability, I've seen players that have that hunger and they've played with injuries and, on the training track, they're limping or their fucking ankles cooked or, their hammies hanging on by a thread and they just want to fucking play.
Mm.
And you play them and just the hunger gets them through the game because they're just at the ball constantly. Whereas you can have physically fit players that have all the tools and all the ability, and if they don't give a fuck, they don't put the effort in to chase or tackle or win the hard ball, and they just sit at the back going, all right, when you pass it to me, I'll kick a goal, but I'm not fucking going to get it. And it will translate. And that's, I started with Sherry this year because he was killing me last year as an antipod. I didn't have him last year, and that run home was just spanking me week in, week out. So I made sure I started him, and obviously I had that choice between Gone and TDK, and I went the younger bloke again, especially with Pitto. I was out early with he missed the first 10 weeks or whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah.
So I went the younger blokes, and Gone, it started off well, and then Gone's obviously turned it around and just been insane. He's had another great year, but yeah, there will be that turning point where it does stop, and the older blokes, your Zorkos and stuff like that, they can't do it forever. He got put off a half back, but even he can't do that forever. And, not Supercoach relevant, but Travis spoke, how much can he go still? There's these blokes that are doing well, your Scotty Pendleburys and your side bottoms and stuff like that. If side bottom's done really well in Supercoach this year, I don't know how, but it's getting tons a week usually. But yeah, there just comes that time where, all of a sudden, Fife, he got injured being a sub. I've never seen that happen before. His body's cooked.
Yeah, I'm actually quite surprised he's still on the list, to be honest. But Bam Bam, he's talking about the Dogs Kennedy, isn't he, that used to be the Blues man, right?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he's been fantastic as well, actually. I can't remember who was in the chat the other day. He'd asked me about which player under 500k in the forward line would I pick, and I actually said Kennedy. So I've got a lot of love for Kennedy for what it's worth.
Yeah.
How do you come up with that name? Double Dummy says, "Hey mate, how you going this week?" Yeah, good. Supercoach wise, not so good for my rank, but I think I can be okay amongst the pack. Houdini, I traded TDK. Can take Gone or Jackson. But I'd go Jackson. Your thoughts on this if you're in this position with only one or two options?
Oh, it's hard. Jackson's they've got a similar sort of run, I guess. Jackson's obviously got the DPP, so if that helps in any way, I'd do that. But I really don't think that there's a big difference in it. I think if you want to be a bit more potty, and the Darcy thing still, it doesn't really worry me as much, but because he's actually scored pretty well with Darcy in the team. But Max is the lone hand, and if he doesn't do it, no one's going to do it type thing. So it just depends. I'm mainly looking at Grundy more. I know he's a lot more money. It really doesn't matter because I've got the cash for it if I want. But Grundy's a pod that might help me climb the ranks. So that's why I'm looking more at Grundy, whereas a few more people have Jacko and Gone. So maybe Jacko just because he's probably less owned than Gone and might be enough to help you climb. But you don't want to copy, or go with the pack towards the end. Your last few trades, you probably want to get at least as much potty as you can to try and climb.
Yeah, I agree. I think as much as I agree, I've gone the other route anyway, just because the position I was in, quote unquote, was in. Hence why I've gone to these pod routes. And even this week, I went Lockie Ash just because it was him we were talking. I wanted to grab a pod, and I think next year I'll probably try not to do too many pods. I think I've gone a little bit too far because now I probably will lose a little bit of ranking against those butter owners and all that sort of stuff. But Shane here is just saying he wasn't far off the Finn call. I'm never really good at remembering who people have called what, even if it's from the night before, because there's so much going on in life that I can't remember those quotes.
Yeah, same.
Wizard says Sherry 50-50 for next week. I heard he passed the HIA. Didn't you as well?
Yeah, he did pass. They'll just look for concussion symptoms, but I think he'll be fine. He doesn't, just clarification too, he doesn't wear the helmet for concussion issues that he's had throughout his career or anything like that, or juniors. It's I'm pretty sure he had a facial fracture from what I've heard. That's what I heard. I'm pretty sure they said it on commentary as well. So it's not a full concussion issue thing. So, and you think him copping the knocks with the helmet on probably helped a little bit. But he passed the test, so it'll just be a watch if he has any concussion symptoms during the week. But he did come off he stayed on and rucked for about 6 or 7 minutes after the hit. He came off at his usual rotation time, and the HIA takes 15 minutes, and that's pretty much all that was left of the game. So it was just precautionary, and they ticked the box to get it while he came off. So I think he'll play.
Yeah, no, I do too, for what it's worth. And then Houdini's could take Marshall and use the cash to upgrade to a fake Primo. I think I'd do that. I was tempted this week to do it, but I didn't go that route because I didn't want to bring in Darcy, Shrek that is, with 8 weeks to go. Corey says English is as good as a forward when he goes there to his accurate goal kick. That's a good shout too, actually, with Tim English. You agree with that one as well?
Yeah, I think he's noticing the against the big boys, he loses the ruck contests a bit. He gets bullied a bit. Sherry was fucking him early on in the game, and I think that was his point of difference. He did it to Grundy as well. He just pushed forward and tried to make him defend, and he actually helped the team. It's not great Supercoach wise. He obviously gets the goals, but I think he's realised that weak point in his game, and he's actually done something about it. So, and he does look good. He can take a grab, and he's pretty accurate in front of goal. So, good point of difference for him.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then Bills, he's got Cal Mills higher or lower. Higher or lower for an 80 this week. I've almost hit a wall.
I reckon. I had him in. I traded him in last week, obviously, and I didn't have the scores up. I was just watching the game, and I thought for sure he would have got an 80 plus, and it was the scaling on that game was just fucking. I don't know. I couldn't understand it. So I don't know. They're at the SCG with that shit turf, so I don't know what kind of game it's going to even be. Apparently, it's meant to rain too, so no idea, man. It could be up, it could be down. I have no idea.
I reckon it's going to be higher just because the roll, I think, is there.
Hopefully.
Wizard, Marshall will be 540K, I think. Bills, really don't like them. I don't think you could go Mills this week. I think Mills, was a week or two ago. Hawksy says Shanahan could be good cover. What do you think about the Shanahan call?
So I missed the first half of the game, but I saw he kicked a goal and he had a few marks and stuff like that. So his score was pretty good. So I don't mind it. At these stage, whatever options you're putting on your bench, you're hoping to play out the year. So for West Coast, who don't have a lot, if he's looking good up forward or whatever, he's probably going to be a lock to stay in the team since Oscar Allen's out and they don't have much else. So yeah, you just want blokes that'll try and play the year out now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that as well. You just want those rookies that you think have got a spot in the side and not ones that are going to be a week or two out. But it's so hard to predict anyway, these rookies. Butler's got a week or two soreness, and everyone was hot on him. Even I put out a poll about him a week ago, I think it was. So it's very hard to read to say rookies who can cover, because even if they have one good 70 or 80 game, it could mean next week they're doing a 30 like Butler did in his sort of translation to his scores. So it's hard to say, because 9 times out of 10, even if you do get him at F6, your flex is probably going to knock that rookie score out anyway. So there's probably no overthought. And like you said, this year with the flex is we've got an extra player essentially. So yeah, you're down to 2 trades, but it's actually more like 3, because you got flex to get rid of a donut if a donut does happen in your side later on in the season.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you just got to hope that there's no, because I think a lot of people are using these last trades. You just got to hope that there's none of these season ending ones. So if Sherry was out next week, you're not going to trade him. Like I would trade him off for 1 week. The 1 or 2 weeks you use whatever cover you got, or you use your flex, and you sort of deal with that. Like I held Whitfield. I looked at trading him just to see what moves I could do, but and I told you and Rook, I said he wouldn't play against West Coast. I just didn't think they'd risk him.
You hit the nail on that.
Yeah, the 1 or 2 weekers, you just got to cop, man. And hope that it changes. But like that's the thing is, if like Jared Witts was managed, and a lot of people are trading him out, and I think this will be his final rest for the rest of the year. So obviously, don't blame people that want to trade him out to if they can get someone decent and try to like climb up the ranks. I've heard people that have Jackson in their forward line, so they've just swapped him to the ruck, which that's perfectly fine. But yeah, like for your 1 weekers and stuff, I'd be trying to hold on as much as you can, and just in case there is a 5-week injury or a 6-week injury that pops up in the last part of the year.
Well, I mean, for that, like I know Gold Coast, they've managed Wits a couple of times this year, but I actually think they might even do that maybe once more before the end of the season, like especially if they've locked the top 4 spot away. I mean, so they've done it this week. It makes sense against Goldie. No offense to Goldie, but DCAM he's surely going to play against. O'Brien he's going to have to ruck against. Being a Suns v Lions, he's probably going to go against, what's his name? Ford. Wits against Nank makes sense. Wits against Pito / TDK. Depending on the ladder, I mean, Suns play Essendon again, and it's their second to last game before the finals start, because the week after they got Port Adelaide. If they've locked up a spot and they think Moyle can do a good job in rounds 23, there's a chance that they do that just a week before, even though he's got a rest or whatever after that, as they do now. But I think those older players is sort of, there's a huge risk. Like I look at my side on paper, and I think Zorko's a huge chance to get rested at some point. Mills potentially, just because of the delayed season he's had. And then there's probably not too many more I'm really worried about. But they might put a player on ice and go, all right, we want to rest Gone this week. Let's give him a chop out this week. Maybe not fully rest him because he's the captain and he's got a lot of pride, but let's grab him Fulton to play half the game, and Gone can stay forward for see what Fulton's got for the rest of the game. And I mean, there's the ifs and maybes and whatever, but that is why trades are sort of handy back into the season. So if you are playing for league cash finals, cash leagues in general are so huge, you would want to keep a spare 1 or 2 just in case you got a grand final cash league and there's $1,000 on the line or some shit like that. You kind of want to hope, or even just leagues in general, that you're in content creators or you're just your mates, you want to hold a trade or 2. And especially like you just said too, that 5-week injury period, you don't really want to be holding Angus Clark for 5 weeks at D6 compared to someone that's running, Rosie, Sheasel, Dale. Not that some of those players matter week in and week out, but over 5 weeks that you would definitely feel a difference fielding a rookie if you've run out of trades and you're down to 0 now.
Yeah, exactly right. And look, you're guaranteed if you're using a rookie to fill in your spot while you got an injury of one of your premiums. You'd say 9 times out of 10, the rookie score will be your lowest score anyway, like pretty close.
And so, flex will be out.
Exactly. So I'd have your rookies that hopefully will play, but I'd say would you rather have a say, and both play for the rest of the year, would you rather, when you got no trades left, a Neil Erasmus on your bench who could get anywhere between 50 to 80 as a rough thing, or an Archer May who could get, we don't really know a lot about him. I think you got a fucking 50 and an 80 or something like, sort of the same sort of thing. But he's like 200k cheaper. I'd rather a May, and then I'm maximizing as much cash on the field as possible. Rather than having, say, a TDK at 500k and a Erasmus on your bench 300k. I'd rather have Grundy that's 700k in a better role, scoring more on field, and have May as a backup that'll probably score around what an Erasmus would get as a backup anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. The only way it wouldn't make sense is if, like we're talking about, Erasmus doing a Sheldrick type thing where he's actually constantly pulling out 80s and 90s, and you're saying, all right, are you going to grab Sheldrick or are you going to grab May? Because in that case, I'm actually picking the Sheldrick combination of the cheaper Primo and not spending all my money on the Grundy in case I need the Sheldrick to cover M8 and whatnot. So it really depends which mid-pricer you've put in there. And the mid-prices you gave me in that chat the other day, they were actually all pretty reasonable anyway. So it's actually hard to nail mid-prices anyway. But like you said, you want to use all the coin anyway, because more than likely you're only going to use that bench cover 1 or 2 weeks, whereas if you're putting all your money into the Primo, that's going to out-average the other Primo by 10, 15 points. Let's say you've just got a really good one like a Grundy type thing, especially the run home he's got. You're actually going to make more points out of that anyway than your 1 week cover from M8 that you decide to put all your money for 300k into Sheldrick type because he can score an 80, because essentially that flex position is going to cancel out that rookie score anyway. You'd want to hope anyway. But yeah,
exactly. Like the O'Halloran one tonight, like if he was your midfield backup or your forward, because he's a mid forward at 300k, he's gotten 100 a couple times I think this year, and a couple 80s. And then the reason he's so low is he was sub a lot for the start of the year, or he had a few like 20s and 30s in there. So doesn't mean he's going to get you that every week. He might drop a 50 or a 60, but at least as someone on your bench, he has the ceiling to get there. Like he can do it. Yeah. Whereas your other rookies and shit, like that haven't turned up, well, you can't expect a ton ever because I haven't had one. Whereas, so you just sort of, it's a bit of luck involved, but you got to pick based on role and, if they actually can get to that ceiling. But like your 1 week and stuff, you just got to hold. But someone like a TDK who, if he's in that role all year, he might as well be a fucking rookie. Like he's not going to score a 90 or 100. There's no point.
Yeah, and that's why you got to remove him off flex. I mean, your position made sense to hold for another week, because if, again, Pito's not named next week, you're laughing, and there's people in the same chat that have done what I've done, and there's people that in your same position to going, oh shit, I've held him a week, but now if he's named again to Pito, he's definitely gone. But Lizard King here has just gone, wait, nope, more like 550k on Marshall, all the rucks are through the roof, and that's what you discovered too when you sent through these combinations of players is they're all really highly priced because they're one of those players, again, like you said, an hour ago, you don't tag ruckman, you tag midfielders. So the midfielders is essentially going to come down to money, but the rucks only do if they're slightly injured, like we saw with Cherry, and Bills are saying risk it. But that's a different thing to consider next year for flex, is how do we do that? I'm not going to look at a 3-ruck setup next year. Have you sort of decided what you're going to do with flex next year or not?
No, I'm just trying to get through this year at the moment. I've definitely I've told myself a few lessons and stuff as well. So, like I know who I want, who I don't want. And, I really just want to get away from any player it's hard because, players' form can change and shit. But, you had Ed Richards at the start of the year who's been an awesome pod, but he's been so good now that it's actually turned into him getting tags. Like you wouldn't have expected that at the start of the year. We're like, nah, they'll take Bond, they'll take Libba. But he's been so good that they've turned that role. So, I got Nick Dacos in the week. He got the 170 against Brisbane, and he's turned up a few times. But I've watched him as well, and sometimes his disposal's so much worse than it was last year. Like he gets to 60% DEs lately, and he obviously has been scoring well, but it's not the funnest bloke to watch anymore. Like the last couple of years I've had him, he's been so fun to watch. Whereas this year, because he's copping a few more tags and he's had a few more of those quieter sort of games, you know, like the Langdon game wasn't great. Wagner tagging him wasn't great. So I sort of want to stay away from those blokes where I don't want to like turn on the TV and then see a bloke hanging off him going, oh, fuck, now we're in for 2 hours of hard work.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with that. These players make themselves a tag target because the year they've had, and like you'll get your example there of Dacos, and Dacos is probably a guy you could have avoided the first, 12 rounds, but since just before his bye, just around his bye, then he's kicked off. So if you brought him in, let's say after his bye, then it's really rewarded you. Same with Sarong owners. People that brought Sarong after his bye are laughing because it's now what he's averaging from here on out. So it's when you jump on and it's when you jump off. And by the end of the year, when Ed Richards is a top 10 midfielder, essentially it would have been one of those guys. Again, it's hard to know that you started like I did, but maybe you jumped off at round, I don't know, let's say 15, and then you grabbed the guy that's in form like a Goulden from 15 to 24. Not that you would do that because that's actually insane to do, but if you're talking about tag targets because they're making themselves known and now that Bont's playing forward to sort of shake that tag anyway, it's about when you bring these primos in, because what Sarong did for you this year or what Sarong did for me this year can completely two different sides of the coin. And people can talk about Sarong and Brayshaw, now it's flipped on its head. So, but it'd have to flip on its head also for the next 8 weeks for it to actually matter for me to go, shit, I should have actually started Sarong. But I don't care. This year's been a bit of a learning experience, and to stay at the top, I actually haven't figured out how to stay at the top, and I think I've actually done a little bit the opposite. I've gone too pottish instead of should have actually stopped the bleeding instead of going the opposite is what the only thing I can think of at the moment.
Yeah. But like I said, I don't think I think you should give yourself a bit more credit. Like you were in the top 100 for what, like 2 months straight. Like that's a decent chunk of the year, a third of the year, man, and fucking. Your first half of the year wasn't bad either. Like as your first couple of weeks, it doesn't really matter where you are because everyone's around the same points anyway. But yeah, 2 months straight, man, where you're fucking sitting in the top 100, like that's awesome. Like I'd be pretty happy with that. And yeah, the last couple of weeks haven't been the greatest for you, and you've dropped a little bit. But that doesn't mean if you can drop that much in 2 weeks, like you can fucking you can climb back up in 8 weeks. That's how I see it. Like. My last 2 weeks, literally 2 weeks ago, was one of the worst weeks I had. Dropped 1.5K in rank. Then last week I was ranked in the 700s for the week and climbed straight back up, went back up 1.3, 1.4K. So I was nearly back to where I was in a week. And it's the same fucking team. Like one week they're shit, they're good. So
that's what's weird about it too. Like, is I haven't had too much actually. Hate or whatever, but like I've had the same size. It's not like I've changed my primos out or anything. I've actually traded really well this year, and like I've even nailed my BCs and Cs. I think pretty much every week, bar from Callahan 72. So there's nothing I can. It's like everything I can do and I can control. I have controlled well. It's the things that I can't predict. That obviously, like in normal life situations as well, like you can do everything right. And then things will come up that you just can't control and it'll make you have a shit day. So like we can't change the weather, but we might have a pissing down rain thing where you can't get much work done because you work outside. But that's what my Supercoach side feels like at the moment. It feels like a really good side on paper, looking at it on screen, etc. But there's just things I can't foresee that goes, okay, well, maybe for the next month my side gets a little bit found out, not by my Supercoach strategy, but by AFL coaches that don't give a shit about Supercoach, which why should they? So it's a little bit for me this year is I've never really had a huge, amazing starting side. I also never really picked pods. So there's like a recipe for building on next year. I haven't given up this year because I'm sitting at rank 601. So I haven't really dipped out that top 1K anyway in 2 months. But there's definitely a recipe for next year. I know what to build on and who to listen to and sort of what to do. Whereas the last 3-4 years making a channel before that, it was a little bit more of, all right, I'm going to try this and see if people try this as well. And I've sort of listened to now this is not a thing in terms of a content branding thing, but I've listened to the right people. Like there's people, and this is no offense to anybody in certain chats or whatever, and I'm not going to get in trouble for this per se, but there's people I really take their opinion to and consideration to, and there's other people I'm just like, Okay, don't worry about it because they're probably not watching enough games for me to really go, yeah. Whereas when I talk to yourself and Rookie that watch these games and even people in the chat, the people in the chat are some of the guys that actually know the most about footy because they're watching 9 out of fucking 9 games. Whereas sometimes you listen to a team review and I'm like, oh, there's been weeks where I haven't been able to watch much football on the weekend and I've given a really short review and I don't try to lie about the games I haven't seen. So I'm pretty open when I say, hey, have you seen this player? Because I didn't know what they scored and why they scored that way because of work, etc. But this year I think I've gone, all right, well, what's got me to where the position I am? It's because I've actually backed my gut and not actually listened to too much outside noise. The only time I listen to outside noise at the moment is if I'm 100% certain that the outside noise is about injured player not to bring in or a role change is 100% there, not just because of footage of training, but because – someone's tagged me in a link saying, here's a press conference of Voss saying this is what's happening in the role. You know what I mean? So the eye test is probably the most important for Supercoach, regardless of what you listen to out there, in my opinion.
Nah, 100%, man. And it is hard like that. And I think you've got to come up for next year. You got to come up with some blanket 100% rules, like your don't sideways primos and your basic rules that you follow in Supercoach. And then there's an element of go with your gut, but there's, I think, don't just go with your gut 1,000,000%. I think you do still have to follow your basic, your gut might be like, no, I need to fuck off. Baz Smith, I think he's going to get an injury. Your gut might be telling you that, but you probably need to stop and go, all right, he's not injured. I might think he might, but my rule is don't sideways my primos. So I'm not going to do it because he's not injured, and you sort of, that's how you contain yourself. But when it's a 50-50, say you got to choose between McCluggage and Goulden, then go with your gut. Go, all right, what does my gut tell me about these two? You're really not going to make a shit decision, but your gut will help you go with, all right, nah, you know what? I don't think Goulden's run's better. I'm going to go with him. And I think he's more of a pod, so that'll help me. Do you get what I mean? Those sort of things. And I think too, just in regards to lastly with the forwards and stuff too, in your lines, your defense, your mids and your forwards this year, other than Baz, and if you class Jackson as a forward, I still look at him as a ruck, but he's a forward. Other than those two and possibly your Petrarcas, the rest of them can go anywhere between a 70 and a 120. Your McRae's, your Horn-Francis, your Warners, your Rankins, your Darcys, your Boltons, all these blokes, they can go anywhere between 70 to 120. They're very up and down. Caleb Daniel as well. So if you're doing more pods in that sort of area, it's probably not. That's the place you want to have more pods. Whereas I actually think that the forward lines, most people's forward lines are nearly the same. Yeah. But you know what I mean? 1 week, if you've got a Nick Martin who gets a 130 because he's got a better matchup versus your Rankin that's dropped to 70 because he's got a shit matchup, that's where you've got a 60-point difference there. Whereas your mids and your defenders, there's a lot of good options that, you score your 115s every week or your 110s every week. So I think learning that sort of thing too is also helpful. And we probably wouldn't have looked at that at the start of the year, but that's how it's gone because you don't know who's going to average what. That's the hard part. So, but that's just how I like doing things with the forward line, especially this year.
The forward line every year seems like most people have the same players, and you're right. The forward line, you can probably throw a blanket over 15 to 20 players in any given week. They've got the ceiling to make up what they scored shit the week before. So maybe at the start of next season for forwards, maybe you look at the guys that have got the easiest fixture from rounds 1 to 8 and you go, all right, well, they're going to get a huge point gap on the rest of the competition because they've got a really good home run and their percentage for CBAs is 50, 60% as opposed to these guys that are, 20, 30% in their fifth banana. These guys are third or fourth banana. So things like that, and probably things like not bringing in the small forwards or first-year players and trying to grab those second, third, fourth-year players in Supercoach rookies sides make more sense as well for the elevated price. You may as well grab a second year that's 210 as opposed to the guy that's number pick 11 and he's 65 kilos wet, playing for a bottom 8 side. So it's kind of those decisions can go a long way. Like we've seen people and probably diverting to a way of the rookies, the people selection. Like people go on about, damn, I should have picked this player. Damn, I should have started this player. But you can't catch them all. It's not Pokemon. But
yeah, legit.
There's guys that I've missed even at the top 1% that I've gone, oh yeah, well, I had X, Y, and Z anyway that made sense at the time. And the rookies are actually a huge hindsight thing. It's like, I should have got Curtin. Well, no, you shouldn't have, because essentially it took Curtin 12 weeks to make the money he did anyway. He was actually a really slow burn, where there was other guys that made 200K in 5 to 6 weeks. Not too many, to be honest, but you know what I mean? Like, you got to take these rookies of, all right, I nailed 90% of them. That's the best you're going to do. The only way you're going to actually nail 100% of every trade in, 100% of every rookie is if you're actually finishing the top 10 this year and you're staying, top 50 all season. Like, it's almost virtually impossible this season to maintain that. Like, I've had a good rank, but I've done so many shit things, and that's the one positive thing for next year is I'm not going to write season over based off 5 or 6 decisions. It's going to take me 30 or 40 decisions for me to go, yeah, season's over now.
Yeah, no, that's it. And like you said, the main thing that people need to remember, and I tell myself all the time, is I made the decision that I thought was best at that time. It's easy to look back and go, fuck, I wasted a boost on that. Like, what the fuck? But you're doing it because it made sense at the time. Like, that's the thing. So people beat themselves up a bit too much as well. Like, oh, fuck, I shouldn't have done that. Yeah, well, you had reason behind it. You wouldn't have done it for no fucking reason. There was a reason you did do it. And like I said, it's a bit of luck sometimes. Like, some things work out and some things don't. And that's what I mean. You make a decision, and if you have more good luck than bad luck sometimes, or it works out more than it doesn't, that's what helps you stay up in the ranks. Like, it's but everyone has a shit week. I guarantee whoever's first, second, third, they've had a shit week at least once this year.
Yeah, no, 100%. They all would have at some point. I'll try to get through some of these comments and just let me know at any point if you need to go and whatnot, because it is 12:30. So I'm going to try to zoom through these and just give short answers for these ones. So you right, Shane here goes, don't know if anyone has Elijah Stewart, but did I see him limping in the 4th? Did you see any of that at all, limping?
No, I think I tuned out at that stage, but not sure.
Same boat. I'll answer this for you you answer this one as well. Are you going to start Callahan, Holmes, Nass, Butters, Ash, Cherry, Draper, Dacos, McKercher, Oliver next season? I can safely say out of that lot, I don't like Oliver and Sam Draper, but I do like Sid Draper for next year. What do you think of that lot that he's given you?
Sid Draper for sure. I wouldn't do Sam. Don't even know where he's going to play. I wouldn't touch Oliver unless he was at a different club. I think he needs a complete. That'd be the only chance I'd pick him up.
Yeah.
But I've gotten a fair few of these this year, and Sherry I think is awesome. Naz, Holmes. I've had Holmes, but he's turned a corner this year, breaking tags and stuff, and he's looking really good. Callahan, I think he's going to be very expensive and probably the number 1 tag target soon. So I'd have a watch on that. But yeah, I love Naz. I've loved him since I brought him in. Butters is one of my favorite players to watch, just in general. So most of these guys, I probably won't touch Dacos next year, just because of the tag factors and stuff. Unless he's in crazy form, like I'd be watching the ones that are going to get tagged.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair reason too. But I just think also you got to look at the work rate of some of these players. Like my other take to Dacos is, maybe next year he's recovered from his foot completely and he's another year older. He's sort of in his prime and he works as hard as Butters does through a tag. And at least, it seems like his teammates actually help him work through the tag and tend to look for him when he wants to cheat 1-2 as well. So, he doesn't sacrifice his game. He still tries to look for cheap ball 2 minutes to go in the 4th.
Yeah.
And then Callahan, you're right about these tag players, but you probably want the players that can burn a tag. Like you did, coaching again, as I was saying, but you want a player that can sort of run the opposition riot and really keep working them over the ball instead of like Tom Green, you're going to tag him because he's at the source and he probably doesn't got the tank to outdo the tag, so he's winning the contest by getting tackled as he's handballing it out. So he's going to get a lot of contested possession to help his Supercoach. But a Finn, a Butters, and a Dacos are going to work through the tag, maybe score, 90 at worst or whatever, but at least they're trying to grab 25 to 30 disposals, even if it is under pressure. And maybe they don't hit the targets, but at least they're working for it. Whereas your Neos and the older players, they will sacrifice their role like Merritt does. So
yeah, agreed for sure.
But yeah, McCarthy got scouted at 82. Next season, play putting that TDK is gone. That's what you were saying before as well about that as well. If you do that, TDK is definitely gone. Green had 15 disposals, 8 contested in the last, got 41 points. He had 6 claims on the night. Hawksy got turned Callahan into Dale. Yeah, that's annoying for this week, isn't it? Projected 2-5. Thanks for McCarthy scaling up. Also, I've got Baz Smith VC safe into Gorn C in case they sub Baz off. I think that's a safe option, don't you?
Yeah.
Aqua's just projecting mine at 2-4-40 if he reckons, and it says it's counting day, weeks projected. Oh, okay. I didn't even know that. So you were right before when you were saying you're not sure if it actually counts those sort of shit.
Yeah, I had no fucking idea.
Hawks just said probably, yeah, I think that's what I will get. Don't think. Yeah, okay, I don't know what it is then if he doesn't think it is, or then he says maybe it is. James says Roman went 160 against Jackson. I do remember that game. Do you remember that game where he went 160? Because I actually had him, I think.
160 against Jackson last week. Yeah. I think he had a monster, was it a massive quarter or something? Yeah. So I don't know. I had Romo, and when I had him, he got the 180 against West Coast, but the rest of the games I had him, he got like a 50 and a fucking 80 or something. Like he didn't look that great then, but he's sort of one of those blokes that has that huge ceiling but can drop a turd as well. So
yeah, I agree. Hey, and for the 50 that we've kept in the chat for the whole entire time, give us a like too, because after these comments are done, we'll get out of here and save the rest for after dark. So Rookie's got something to talk about tomorrow night. But Marshall R1, Hawks is calling, and Acker says no CBAs for Josh Kelly. He hasn't been getting rid of CBAs all year, basically. Just on the wing. That's interesting. It's been on a wing for those kind of scores as well.
Yeah.
Hello to you as well, Mott. Romo is a what? An Optus
Oval. He had the big score against West Coast there, and then the big one against Jackson and Darcy as well. So his biggest scores are at Optus Oval.
Oh, right. Okay. I thought he was talking about I don't know, some fucking Optus play or something.
A shit Optus deal.
Corey says he scored 2 goals in the last. It's about giraffe for O'Hallahan. Loves it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree for the first 4 rounds. That's what happens with breakouts is they take a whole half season just to get used to it anyway.
Yeah.
Hasn't a 40 from week been worth it? Wait the 17 weeks to make a little more money, couple of trades left. He's probably out that side straight away as well.
Yeah.
Do you reckon he comes out for week?
Yeah.
Corey, the issue with Cherry was there was 20 minutes left. Yeah, you said this before. Like by the time he did the concussion, that was the end of the game with the how long it takes to do it.
Players just come off at their usual rotation. Cherry did it with Essendon as well. He got hit in the head, played for 10 minutes, came off in his rotation, and then they used it so the 20 minutes would go into the halftime break. So that's all it's for. But yeah, Sherry's was at the end. So yeah.
I 100% think that Cripps is carrying something this year and it won't get released until the end of the year. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. He's not himself. They were saying this time last year he had 30 Brownlow votes. He's only got 11 coaches' votes this year. So well down.
That's saying something. So if any Carlton supporters know if he's got a niggle of some sort that's hindering him or they haven't released something, I wouldn't be surprised because captains normally tough it out sometimes and years gone by and then they come out and say, oh, yeah, no, I had this lingering issue since round 6. I did my ribs.
Yeah.
Tragic Gaming, definitely take Cherry. Your thoughts are the same, aren't they?
I had Cherry. I took it. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Tragic. Safe to keep VC on Cherry, but I'm going home. That's nuts, Bills boys. Hope your balls are sore from being so big. Causa Math Kennedy was worse giving up. Yeah, that was weird too with the Kennedy thing as well. Like, they're happy to let him go for fuck all with some of these players, like we were saying before. And you'd think right now, they could do with a Kennedy in that team at Carlton.
They could.
But I also think there's a world where, players don't progress anyway and become better football players if they don't move club anyway.
Well, they were using him or George Hewitt on off as subs because they're the same sort of player, and I think they just wanted to stick with Hewitt. Yep. So, but yeah, like they even threw Kennedy forward for a bit last year, Carlton. So, and they could probably use him up forward now, for fuck's sake. So then maybe see it be in the ruck. So yeah, but no, he's done well at Bulldogs, man. He's had a really good year, really good Supercoach year. So like you love to see a player go to a different club, like Baz as well, and just fucking love it. They love him.
I think if Kennedy's got forward status next year, I'll probably pick him for Supercoach.
Yeah.
Horses, can't believe I burnt 3 trades, all 200k rookies for Darcy back-to-back 73s. Yeah, it's annoying, isn't it? I think he still averages quite high, but I just don't think we saw him getting bathed the night before against, I forgot his old mate's name, but like there's going to be a game where he makes up for it and we go, all right, well, at least he's sort of averaged it out now and it's 95 average by the end of the season potentially from these 2 shitty games he's had.
Wait till he plays Essendon, mate. You have a fucking spike score, trust me.
And that's what you need. All you need is a spike score. Yeah. Giants under, what does that even say? Can you read that for me? I did VCal.
Fuck. I think it's meant to be underachieved for the talent. So they're saying like they should have probably won a flag or something by now because of how much talent they've got.
Sorry, I understood unachieved, but I actually didn't understand what the German word was.
I was looking at it too. Oh, what the fuck?
I'm like, what's going on? And then the Wizards got something for us. He goes, on draft, everyone is waiting for the Cats downfall, but imagine the day we finally get some top 5 picks. That's pretty crazy too, because everyone is sort of death riding them. It's sort of like, no offense to Lizzie King, I know he's a Cats man, but living down here, it is one of those things where you kind of do a little bit death ride just because down here, everyone just goes nuts for him. And I remember I've been to a few GMHBA games and every time Richmond touched the ball, any of our players for 2 seconds, they'll go, ball, and it's like, mate, they just them. Yeah, the crowd's different down here. There's something in the water, and I can't wait to move out of Geelong. And I'm actually thinking of moving to Adelaide. I don't know if I've told you this, Ghost.
No, I heard. I think you might have mentioned on one of your streams I was watching, and I did hear drop that, but mate, I don't blame you. I grew up in Geelong, love the area, love like my family's still there and all that stuff too. But I was hoping for a few years that the Cats would not do so well, just to get away from some of the supporters and that. But can't hate on them for what they've done. They're just a club. So
yeah, and I think it's something I've learned in Supercoach. It's like I used to really hate Collingwood, but then Fly came along to their club and that changed my heart for Collingwood. And then I'd probably love Geelong a lot more if Chris Scott wasn't their coach. That's probably my only issue with the Cats. Like, other than that, I've got a soft spot, but it's just Chris Scott that I can't fucking stand listening to every time. And there's coaches that once they're gone, then you actually start to like that club again. But again, you're still got to be one-eye supporter and hate every other club just a little bit anyway.
Yeah.
As I said, Isaac Smith was another Cat swooped on. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, he means late. Does he mean late when it was the last 2 years he went to the Cats, didn't he?
Yeah, last couple of years, and one of Norm Smith.
Yeah, which is wild. He's been such a good player. Brian says, why do I have the suspicion that Cherry will have Delay Simpsons? Oh, no, don't tell us this. If he jinxes this, I'll be so annoyed.
I don't know. If he has him, it'd have to be pretty serious because even like he was telling the medical stuff, like he was like pretty much, and people were asking him if he was all right, and he was kind of telling him to like piss off, like I'm like he's a bit angry about it, like just like fucking leave me alone type thing. So, but he might have been doing that because he knows he was a bit rattled. But yeah, I know he'd want to play 1,000,000,000%. Like he's not one to want to sit out and miss games for sure.
He's not their captain though, is he? Is it Buddy? Is there who's North's captain?
Simkin.
Yeah, right. Fuck, I couldn't remember. For some reason, I was like, is it Simkin? Is it fucking Cherry? Is it Luke McDonald? Like, I just always in my mind right now. But
McDonald, yeah. But David King says all the time. I watch like First Crack and all that stuff with him, and he always says Sherry. He says it with Butters as well. He goes, they're the captains. The way they play, the way they are, they're the captains. They're just haven't got the official title. But yeah, Sherry's a beast, man. He loves to compete.
I probably tend to agree, and not spiritual way, but I get their spiritual captain. So like your Butters is your barometer of the Port Adelaide football side. When he's going well, generally the team sort of goes well. When Cherry's going well, North are never going fucking well. But you know what I mean?
Like, yeah.
There is like that certain player where you're like, all right, he's up and about. And I remember watching Richmond in his prime era. Obviously, Dusty was the barometer, but I remember watching games where like I was like, fuck, Prestia is on board. This is going to be a really good game. And he was one I actually used to watch a lot. If Prestia was having a good game, he was generally reading the crumbs. I knew we were off to a good start because he was reading it well in the first quarter. Same with players like Vlosten down back. If he was intercepting that first quarter, I was quite confident. And even in the forward line, when I saw Shane Edwards do some silky shit and I knew he was on, I was like, yeah, Tigs are in for a good game. And there's players that they're not known as the captain, but you know that your whole team walks a little bit taller when they are on the field. And we've all, like most of us in the chat, played for footy sides. When you've got mates that are very tough or they can dominate, the game that they're fucking missing, you actually feel a little bit lost about them. Have you noticed that?
Oh yeah, and whether I've been playing or coaching, like when sometimes you get an inclusion in your side and you just see everyone else like perk up and they work a bit harder or they're just happier, and yeah, it just helps the mood on the day as well. So I was going to say the same about Joe Watson, but he actually was our captain. But when he was going well, Essendon we shit overall, but if he had to rip a game, we were probably going to win usually.
Yeah, and I feel there's a lot of sides like that. Like to just have a few guys that when they're on the park, and that's why I think Sydney Supercoach is a bit relevant now. That we're seeing Goulden back on the park and Papley back on the park, and I think that actually helps Chad Warner Supercoach and Grundy Supercoach and all these other players. So I was tying it back into Supercoach in the end, but I think that's my general point is too. Is like people with these teams are going, oh my god, this player's so shit. But once the whole team comes back. And then those sort of players actually get a better look at it, especially in our forward line. Like, ideally, Sam Berry gets dropped in rank and gets more midfield time because Crouch comes back. There's things that need to happen in Supercoach sometimes that just don't go your way because of it. One player will come out for another, and then that will change someone else's role. So it's almost like a third-party decision that actually fucks your decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, shit you can't plan for.
Yeah. Wizard says the majority of success comes from the bottom six, the Cats. That's fair. And look, he's a Cats man, so I probably believe that. Like the other thing I think he hasn't put in here too is some of their players that come in have played so many games anyway, so that you look at their VFL players, VFL football, half of them have already played 50 games in the AFL anyway. So you look at their emergencies, for example, you got fucking Jack Bowes as your emergency.
Yeah.
Like it's the depth that they've got that can play a role. Jed Buse is their emergency. I mean, Buse isn't Supercoach relevant whatsoever, but you got players like that in your twos where you look at Richmond's twos and they're guys that are, 21 years old.
Yeah. No, it's a massive difference. And Geelong, like I said, we got the dud Scott for sure, but Chris Scott knows how to maximise the weapons he's got. He's, Dempsey on a wing, Blitzar's going from Mingo defense, wing, ruck. He's just got so much. And everyone just knows their role and are happy with the role. And I think that's the biggest thing. And that's why, the lesser lights of Geelong are usually pretty consistent. And it's not reliant on your 3-4 players to kill it every week.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And like there's teams that are so well balanced they don't need to rely on those 3 or 4 players. And I'm just the comments I'm going to put on the screen. Some of them I won't read out just because they're just general chit chat and they're things we've talked about anyway. But yeah, for next year's Supercoach, there'll be certainly a lot more planning for me buy-wise. I've also figured out. Like, I just did not plan well for the buys. Did you plan at all for the buys?
I knew I was going to have a shit first round, and it ended up being okay. But all the better teams, or not like Supercoach relevant teams, all had that first buy that just fucked us. But the last round of the buys was everyone was like dreading, and I actually looked at it, and I only had the 3 to 4 players out. So I was like, I'm like, that's not really a big deal for me. And like I said, I scored pretty well last week, and was ranked in the 700s for the week. So that, other than the first week, all my other weeks I only had about 3 to 4 premiums max missing. But yeah, like I had one of my worst weeks in one of those weeks, the week before last. So, you know, you can plan for it, and then all of a sudden your players you got just a shit anyway. So
Yeah.
But I went all the way up to that first buy with 6 primos out, and I knew I was going to trade one, which ended up being Sheasel, and I went to Matty Rao at the cheap price. So I was very happy with that. But I traded him in, and he was on a buy where I only had 2 primos out. So it just worked out a bit more balanced. So, and that was the only way I could field 18 that first week. So I just had to do that. But yeah, I didn't really plan for it too well. It sort of just worked out a bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I wish I had a plan for it, or else I could be in a better position. But I remember you actually saying about the Rao pick, and I was like, yeah, holy shit. And then that week he scored a 120, if you remember that.
Yeah, no, and it really helped, and like he's been killing it. I expect him to have a decent day against the Bombers tomorrow. But yeah, I think Setterfield will go to him, play on the bigger bodies, and I think if Darham's in the middle, Darham will probably run with Anderson for a little bit. That's my little shout out. We'll see how accurate I am.
Yeah, no, 100% on that. And then Jason Hughes goes, hey, mate, Hewitt with a quiet game, but what can you expect from current players? Traded Doc to Gordon, so hopefully Gordon can smash it. I'm not too worried about Hewitt because, I mean, Collingwood are restricted to midfielders anyway.
Hewitt's the safest one in there, man. 100%.
Yeah, that's right. Like, I'm not really worried about Hewitt as a pick, to be honest. Cheras would have been annoying, though. Has hopefully bringing Whitfield as my 23rd after next week, below 500k. I don't think he will be. He'll stay at his price at 509. I think he won't be below 500 because he didn't play.
Yeah, unless he's waiting another week. I don't. Who do the Giants have next week? I don't even know. Fuck. But he's break-even's 44, so
probably waiting a fortnight time then. Jay says, do you reckon one trade from round 20 onwards is enough of flex? Or I reckon it actually probably is if we don't get the 3-week fucking carnage like we did, you know, with Finn, Horn Francis and McRae a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. And I just look, Giants have the Cats next week.
Oh, shit. Yeah, okay. It's going to be a low game for Witt.
At NG, though.
Then it might not be, actually. Jay said he did run with Nick for all of the game. That's Hewitt. That's right. Oh, yeah. Hewitt did do a bit of tagging. I forgot. That's why he scored an 85. Yep, makes sense. He was more focused on drinking at the pub than watching the game. I'd be doing that too, to be honest, with Supercoach.
Yeah.
I was like everyone with Kako. Yeah, the ceiling games, but the ceiling games don't work with small forwards. We know that now, don't we? Well, obviously, that's why I didn't go Kako and start him anyway.
His ceiling game was the pre-season game against Geelong where he kicked the 4 goals and he got 90. That was his spike game was pre-season, mate.
Literally, maybe he made himself too well known to opposition, and they thought, "Fuck, we better stop this guy." Got to love the pub. That's the risk with Hewitt, kind of. I use him as a tagger sometimes. Horse flex is great for cash making ruckman during the season. You don't really want to tie it up with a primo that gives you no flexibility. That's what I hate about. A sliding doors moment for me a couple of weeks ago, but hindsight, like TDK would have been a good flex option because the top 1% all had him anyway, and his fixture looked okay for ruckman. But now that he's, it's shit.
Yeah.
So they're saying again you can use it as a cash cow for ruck as the flex next year, but I don't know if there's going to be anyone that pops up to my head that I really want to do that with because I just feel like I'd rather use rotating rookies and see what rookie I can put in flex that maybe I've got stuck on my bench because I've got too many good rookies on the bench.
Yeah. Yeah. If I reckon when either Witts retires or if Ned Moyle ends up leaving Gold Coast and goes somewhere, like he'd be a number one ruck somewhere, and he'll be a decent one. You know, like I sort of keep an eye on the rucks in the VFL that and it'll be interesting actually because Moyle's obviously going to ruck this week, and the Bombers dropped Vicentini to bring Goldstein back in, so it'll be pretty interesting.
I think Moyle wins this one actually, which is probably the call I'm going to go with, but it wouldn't surprise me too if bloody Goldie just baths him.
Yeah.
Causer says, crazy to think Dacos has more contested marks than Kerno and Cripps combined. Causer comes up with like stats like Ash Chua.
Awesome.
Just, yeah, so left field. I'm not expecting him, and then all of a sudden he comes up with a stat I've never heard before. And Anthony says, love the pub and a cheeky slab. Might go tomorrow. And now that it's in my head. Which I thought I could sideways far more than I could this year with flex. Nobody could have predicted the cow drought. I'm going to be much more considered next year, I think. So this is his lesson.
Yeah.
Jason says, yep, same second year playing. So I like to think that I've learned some lessons for next year. And as far as that, would you just get McCluggage to the Gordon? I'd probably go Gordon. Who would you pick from here on out?
I actually said if it was me doing it, I would go McCluggage, but I love the Gordon pick because he is so low owned. Like he's even less than McCluggage, but I just think we've seen McCluggage do it for the whole year. Even Ken Hinkley said he's going to tag Neil still. So, McCluggage is probably going to pop off again. But yeah, I think either you can't go wrong with either. They're both great.
Yeah, I agree. Anthony says, Jason, it's good to check their run home and previous scores against their opposition, which is a good point. Wizard says, Klug is a great pick, Gordon too, but his wing role is possibly suspect to low scores. He's a high kick freak, though. I doubt either is wrong choice. I agree with that as well. Good summary he's written out, actually.
Yeah.
Jason says, thanks, guys. I think I will be pretty close in scoring. Sorry, they would be pretty close in scoring. Yeah, so they're basically saying that either or, really, and that's what we were saying anyway.
Yeah.
Causes 50-50 was Home or Kennedy for 20K more. By structure went Kennedy over Holmes. Yeah, okay, that's a huge difference, isn't it, when you look at that contrast?
Yeah, Holmes was that cheap price, and I had the opportunity to go in too, but I think there was just someone else I had to pick that week, and yeah, it's just unfortunate because he's gone nuts. But I'm happy with my backline. I got Naz in as my last one, so pretty happy with my backline. Holmes is a tough antipod at the moment, though. Yeah,
I've got a few tough antipods. Corey says, lots of people missed Cos, so did I. Murphy, Reed, Erasmus, Langford. Yeah, they're few ones. I missed all those, but they were more pod-like from memory anyway.
Yeah.
Man, I'm a Cats fan and was convinced. Best year I had in Supercoach is when I won KFC, won the onesie lol. Jason, people who picked the majority of the bigger cash cows are going to finish the season so strong. I think it's actually about avoiding carnage that people are going to, finish strong.
Yeah.
Cos wasn't up to it and started Stewart. Yeah, that's a hard one, especially if you're a Cats man. You're like, nah, Cos, I won't pick Cos, because you know the team too well sometimes, and you're like, nah, there's no way they're getting a game.
Yeah.
LDU might be for next year. I'm actually considering LDU. I know Shorty's not hot on it, but with the concussion thing, if he stays below 500, I don't mind starting him at like 490. LDU has been a soft locked into M2 for 2026 for the time being. I actually agree with Aqua for this one.
Yeah.
Dirt. 420, 430. Yeah, it's hard to know if he actually will be, though. Like, we're just guessing here.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch it, though.
Oh, my God. Fuck, yo. I don't know if I've ever...
Him and Philippou should combine their bodies, and maybe they'll have one that can actually stay out in the field.
Oh, and fucking Georgie Wardlaw.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't touch that.
Nah. It's like when that Prestia hype came about, I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Well, he hasn't been injured yet. He's just dropped a few fucking stinker scores, though.
Yeah, legit. I could just... It's surprising that I'm actually surprised Yo's still on the list. I know he had a good year. Was it last year that he came out of fucking injury. Now she started scoring.
Yeah, there was 1 year in the last 2 that he did really well for a fair bit. I think it was last year because he was helping Harley Reid a lot. And Harley Reid looked really happy in the mids and stuff. And I thought that was the biggest issue this year is that Yo wasn't there. Tim Kelly didn't give a fuck. So that's why Harley's been in the middle getting frustrated as much as he has this by the looks of things.
Tim Kelly's washed. He doesn't deserve to be on the list.
Yeah.
If Oliver came to the Cats, that would be nice. Would you pick him at the Cats if he was on Supercoach? I probably wouldn't still pick him.
I'd want to see, but I think if there's a club that could turn his attitude around and give him that sort of feel down there, I think they've got their own like culture and atmosphere, the way that the club is, and I think that would probably be the one that would turn him around. If he went to somewhere like Hawthorn or even Essendon or something like that, I don't think his mood would change very much, and I don't think it'll help his on field. But I would say Geelong would probably have the best chance of turning him around. Yeah,
probably. You're probably right. Langford, 250k, probably too injury prone. You're the Essendon man. What do you think?
No, I wouldn't touch him.
Then he said, anyway, not that I'd start, but kind of interesting. Wizard says, I was going through my team history and I scored 2, 8, 9, 3 in 2019. I don't even know my career best. I'll have to have a look at the next video for me. Do you know what your career best, or you haven't been doing this long?
It was a 2-7 something, but the highest rank I got for the week, I was 14th.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And this year was 32. I had a week where I was 32 this year.
Yeah, right. That's actually really good. Akko says there wasn't much reason to sell Callahan in round 4. He had a tag game and a fluke of down. Yeah, he's got a good point too. That's why I sort of held him as well. Paul Francis, easy F1 next season, maybe ranking, but only if Crouch gives up Ghost. Will Dawson. Will Dawson's the one I was thinking about that killed Darcy as well, which is stupid to think. But, I mean, again, Darcy will make those points up for Essendon. Maybe that's when we VC him, don't we, against Essendon then?
Yeah, I'd fucking watch it against Essendon for sure. But he did. Sam Darcy took a lot of marks. He dropped a lot. He got his hands to him, brought him to the ground, and it just pop out at the last second. So he could have had more shots at goal and a few more contested marks, which that probably stopped him from getting at least a 90.
Yeah. Was there a car in the background?
Yeah, I live off like a main road, so sometimes it's just dickheads that fucking just their cars at fucking 1 a.m, whatever it is.
That's rough. Jason says the recruiting stuff at Geelong is unreal. I tend to agree.
Yeah.
Simpkin overrated, definitely.
Yes.
Wizard King North had a proper crack, man. I'm starting to believe. It's hard to get a gauge of some of those sides. I think North, St Kilda, and teams like that are very hard to read. Like Carlton are easy to read because we just know they're pure shit at the moment, just due to Voss. Whereas Richmond, as a supporter, I know where we stand because I know it's based on youth and we don't have enough game experience. Like a lot of our players that are going to retire this year are going to become a younger list again and again for the next 2 seasons. So I already know what the answer is for our side. But St Kilda, on teams like that have like a good half the year, whether it be back half or first half, they're more confusing than any other sides to gauge because you don't know which side of the coin's the real one and which one's the anomaly.
Yeah. No, I agree with that for sure.
Whereas at least you know that Gold Coast have actually turned a corner and it looks like they can actually handle top 8 sides this year from what it is.
Yeah, they just didn't buy into whatever the coach's message was until Dimmer got there. They believe in what Dimmer's teaching them. Like you can tell the attitude's completely.
Yeah, because they've basically got the same list really, but it's just Dimmer's structured them in a different way and maybe they've got more confidence because he's the guy that makes them walk tall that we were talking about an hour ago.
Exactly right.
Akko says Yo went from 110 last year to 115 in the first 9 before he got injured. Horsehead in the bed, Adelaide offered Yo. Oh, this is wild. Is this true? A 3-year deal last year? But
I heard that. Yeah.
Fuck. Crows are dumb to do even that. Wizard says you can check history tab on field page. I think I've got about 9 years of history thing, so I'll do it another time when I actually want to dive into it a little bit more than just flick through it. I'm pretty sure I've got a few top 10 weekly finishes and shit like that. But I see CBF refreshing my page and going through that. Jay says, only if North drafted key position players that are mids, that'd be a lot better. Ghost talking while driving. No, we'd never do that, would we now?
No.
Wizard says, North actually moved it well once. It's funny how sometimes teams will take advantage of how other teams use ball movement, so they're more confident to risk it because a team will allow them to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100% on that, yeah.
I just think it's really hard to gauge in an offensive side like the Dogs on how North transition the ball, because the Dogs sort of have that game plan where you can sort of be a little bit more offensive, just the way they play is offensive, so it kind of counterbalances it, in my opinion.
Well, I think Larky, most of his goals that he kicked, he nearly had 5 in the first quarter, and they were all pretty much near the goal square. Like, he walked a couple, and his leg was stuffed too. Like, he just took a mark, and whoever was on him, I think it was O'Donnell, like, just fell over, and he just, like, walked it in. But he couldn't even bend his leg. Like, so Larky, 5 was fucked. Like, he wasn't even 100%, and he still kicked 4 or 5. So, yeah.
Yeah, they've got a few good, talented players, but I think it takes more than that to. I mean, they've looked better than what they've been for the last couple of years anyway. Like, they've got enough wins on the board to suggest they've definitely improved.
Yeah.
But I think you just want more from not so much their younger players, but probably their senior players, their more proven players. You're kind of like, well, we already know what we're getting from you, but you're like a C grader. You should at least be a B grader by now, at least.
I think they've got to keep playing Finbar Maley as well. Like, he's so good to watch. Like, he had stuff all of the ball and probably not a Supercoach option, but he just competes. He flies for everything. Sort of like how Taru was for St Kilda last week, the rookie. Like, just if you get these young kids that are hungry as fuck for it, leave them in the team, man. Like, that hunger it's powerful, man.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like, I'm looking forward to seeing Miles Rioli, which is a weird player for me to actually be excited to watch to play, but I want to see him go into the midfield for Richmond back in the season, and I want to see Laywar used a little bit more midfield in this back in the season, and even Taj Houghton to get a gig at the Tigs. So there's a few things I'm looking for Uze to do for me to have confidence in the Tigs for the next 2 seasons, but I'm still very critical of where I think Uze is with the side. Like, I think there's a lot of silly decisions he makes, and it's hard to know where he is as a coach, but at least I know the list is there. That's the main thing. I can see the list building, and I'm just sick of watching fucking McIntosh show up to the field, and it'd be nice this year to see who goes. I think Presti is on the way out, but they also need to keep some leadership like Nankervis as well. So
you got Taranto in the field too, and Hopper. Like, you got some decent mids in there as well. So that should help, bring that new young group in. You want at least 1 or 2 seasoned players. That, Hopper's had some good years before, probably not so much at Richmond. He had some good years at the Giants, but he's still a solid player. He can have those days where he pops off a bit.
Yeah, I mean, even like Taranto and Hopper was brought in from Dimmer to sort of retop the list and, have another crack at it. But little did they know that they had too many retirements to actually have another go and rekindle the fire. And we wasted 2 first rounds and 2 second rounds on both those players.
Yeah.
Jay says, Ghosty, since you're a Dons man, who do you think averaged more, Caldwell or Merritt? I actually think Caldwell.
Oh, I agree. I think if Merritt's going to keep getting thrown around, and I don't know, I was about to say to you, Braddles, if you want me to trade Uze for Brad Scott, I'd be more than happy to do that, because I don't think he knows what the fuck he's doing as well. Yeah, Merritt should just be playing guts. If he gets tagged, so be it. He's too good to play elsewhere. You don't have you want your captain in the guts, don't you? Like, when you're a side like Essendon, you want your captain in the guts, because that's where it starts. And Caldwell's been really, really solid. And I think, like we talk about, him, Durham, and Merritt, if you're listing the 3 hungriest blokes out there that want to win and compete, it's probably those 3. So why not have them in the guts? So, to answer the question, I actually think Merritt's still a bit. He's the number 1 tag target, and the role is all over the joint. So I would say Caldwell's pretty pretty favourite to score more.
And this is what I was trying to get George from SC Masters not to bring in Merritt because he's looking at the other way. But
I saw that on the podcast during the week. Yeah.
Yeah. Aqua says, I don't understand how Carlton made the 8 last year. Then follows up.
Filling the numbers.
Yeah, literally. Sometimes you don't know how the fuck teams got there. Then says, I don't know how they were in the top 10 until last Thursday. And follows up with Carl Daniels, the shittiest football in the country. I'm just sort of a bit distracted because my dog's going nuts. I'm going to have to check that, read these comments and go because the other night, I don't know if you heard my story about the break-in down the road.
Yeah, no, I did. That's hectic too. Jesus.
Yeah, so I might have to go at the baseball about the next couple of minutes. Aqua says, definition of she's Hunter. Jason says, honestly, I do feel bad for people who support shit clubs. Being Cats fan is so nice. Haha. Causer says, I feel for North to have another 3 chances for the wins. No, I'm bushing that comment, but he reckons that 3 wins, the Tigers, St Kilda, Melbourne. I tend to agree with all 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then Aqua says, I've learnt to just pretend the season ends in August as a Port fan.
Doesn't it? As a supporter, it always ends in August for us.
Yeah, literally. And last couple of comments before my dog goes nuts says, once September hits, we become prime 2012 Melbourne, as we always everything. Get the cheese boards out. Corey says, I hope North keep playing with Dawson over Logue to the end of the season for sure. And then Austin says, I'm buying in on Comden too, Corey. Shame he got hurt. He showed a bit last year as well. And then Jason for the last comment says, even for Essendon's sake, if Merritt gets tagged in the guts, it leaves their own other mids with much more opportunity.
Yep. Exactly right.
I'd agree. I had to fly because I think there might be actually someone out there. So rip if there is, and I don't get to do a stream for a couple of days. But I'll be in after dark regardless if I'm in a hospital bed or if they're in a hospital bed. But thanks for jumping on, mate. And listen to you. And I'm looking forward. Hopefully, no pressure if you don't. But if you do content next year, mate, we'll definitely have to get you on. And I'm sure there's people that would already sub straight away.
Legend, mate. No, definitely looking into that. Just enjoying jumping on with you and Rook. So thanks heaps for letting me jump on and have a chat. I'll probably be in trouble now because I said I'd only be half an hour, but it's going a bit long.
Well, you said to me it'll be 45 minutes, so I'm in the doghouse too.
All good, brother. No, I appreciate it. Thanks heaps. And go rescue your dog or beat the fuck out of whoever's out there. Yeah,
literally, man. All right, I'll do that now and I'll leave you to it. And for those people in the chat too that was 50 odd for the entire thing, basically, give us a like before you leave and we'll see you tomorrow night on After Dark. Thanks everyone for watching.